3 a.m. The world outside is draped in a profound and heavy silence. The traffic has long since ceased. The homes of your neighbors are dark, and the moon, if it is visible, moves across the sky with a quiet, indifferent grace. It feels as though the entire planet is holding its breath, resting in a deep and dreamless peace. But in the small universe of your bedroom, there is no peace. There is no silence. Here, in the stark intimacy of the darkness, your mind is a raging storm, a noisy battlefield where thoughts clash like desperate armies, worries about the future, regrets about the past, and an endless, frantic planning for the day to come all vie for your attention, each one shouting louder than the last. You feel utterly alone, a solitary, wakeful island in a vast ocean of slumber, and with each tick of the clock, a quiet panic begins to build, a desperate yearning for the simple, elusive release of sleep. This experience, this nightly battle, is more than just a medical condition or a glitch in your circadian rhythms. It is a uniquely modern form of suffering, a dis-ease of a spirit that has forgotten how to be still. Throughout our waking days, we train our minds to be engines of productivity. We push them to analyze, to solve, to create, to connect, to constantly process an unrelenting stream of information. Our minds are our greatest tool, and we keep them sharpened and running at maximum capacity from the moment we wake. Then, at the end of the day, we lie down, turn off the lights, and we expect this powerful, supercharged engine to simply switch off. But there is no switch. A mind that has been trained to run all day does not know how to stop. It continues to do what it does best. It thinks, it worries, it plans, it tries to solve the problem of its own wakefulness. And here we arrive at the central, maddening paradox of this struggle. The harder you fight for sleep, the more it flees from you. The more you chase it, the faster it runs. The very act of striving, of wanting, of trying to force the surrender of sleep is an act of tension and alertness, the very opposite of the gentle, effortless letting go that sleep requires. This nightly war cannot be won, because the act of fighting is the very thing that guarantees your defeat. But what if there is another way? What if the path to peace is not through fighting harder, but through laying down your weapons entirely? Ancient wisdom, particularly the deep, practical psychology of the Zen tradition, offers us this other path. It is not a quick fix, not a magic pill to be swallowed. It is something far more profound. It is an invitation to fundamentally change your relationship with the night, with your mind, and with yourself. It is a path that teaches the art of surrender, the wisdom of acceptance, and the quiet power of simply being present. This journey we are about to embark upon is not about how to conquer insomnia. It is about how to find peace. Whether sleep comes or not, it is about discovering that within the very heart of this difficult struggle lies the unexpected key to a deeper and more unshakable rest than you have ever known. We begin our journey not in a sunlit temple or a quiet monastery, but in the dark, intimate, and often frightening space of our own bedroom in the middle of the night. It is here that we first encounter the true nature of what keeps us from peace. It is not the bed, nor the darkness, nor the silence of the world outside. It is the relentless, churning, unstoppable storm within our own mind. This is the tyranny of the racing mind. During the day, our consciousness is a bustling city street, filled with the noise of traffic, the chatter of conversations, the demands of work, the constant stream of information from our screens. The inner voice is just one sound among many, often drowned out by the sheer volume of external life. We are too busy, too distracted, too engaged to notice the subtle, or not so subtle, currents of thought that are always flowing beneath the surface. But when night comes, everything changes. The world outside goes quiet. The traffic ceases. The emails stop arriving. The house is still. All the external distractions are stripped away, one by one, until only you and your mind are left, alone together in the dark. And in that profound silence, the inner voice that was a mere whisper during the day becomes a deafening roar. Every worry, every fear, every unresolved issue is suddenly given a megaphone. The mind, freed from its daily tasks, turns inward and begins to feed on itself. This is why the night feels so loud. The silence of the world acts as a perfect amplifier for the noise of the mind. This mental storm is not just a random collection of noise. It has patterns, it has recurring characters and familiar scripts. If we listen closely, we can identify three main thieves that steal our nightly peace. The first thief is the ghost of the past. It arrives cloaked in regret and what-ifs. The mind begins to replay events from the day or the week. You might find yourself relitigating a conversation you had at work, thinking of all the clever things you should have said. You might feel a hot flush of shame over a mistake you made, turning it over and over, examining it from every angle, as if you could somehow change the outcome through sheer force of will. The past becomes a courtroom where you are simultaneously the prosecutor, the defendant, and the judge, and the verdict is always guilty. These thoughts are ghosts because they have no substance in the present moment. Yet they haunt us, draining our energy and filling us with a sense of helpless remorse over that which can never be altered. Just as the ghost of the past fades, the second thief appears. This is the phantom of the future, and its weapon is anxiety. The mind leaps forward in time, constructing elaborate and often terrifying scenarios. It starts with simple planning, a to-do list for the next day, but it rarely stops there. It morphs into a frantic rehearsal of a difficult conversation you need to have. It becomes a cascade of what-if questions. What if the presentation goes badly? What if I lose my job? What if this strange pain in my side is something serious? What if my children are not safe? The mind becomes a terrible movie director, creating disaster films in which you are the unwilling star. You lie in bed, your body tense, your heart rate elevated, as you live through tragedies that have not happened and likely never will. You are trying to solve tomorrow's problems with today's exhaustion. A futile exercise that only deepens the pit of anxiety and pushes sleep further and further away. You are fighting battles on a field that does not yet exist. And perhaps the most insidious thief of all is the third one. The critic of the present. This is the voice that comments on the very act of being awake. It says, "Here we go again. Another sleepless night." It says, "You are failing at this. Everyone else is asleep. What is wrong with you?" It begins to calculate the damage for the next day. If I don't fall asleep right now, I'll only get 4 hours of sleep, and I will be completely useless tomorrow. This inner critic is a cruel master. It takes the simple fact of wakefulness, which is neutral, and layers it with judgment, frustration, and fear. It is this voice that turns a period of quiet rest into a desperate struggle. It creates the very tension it is complaining about. It is the voice that tells us we are at war with ourselves. There is an old story about a man who comes across a beautiful, still mountain lake. He is so enchanted by its perfect, mirror-like surface that he desires to possess that stillness, but as he reaches out to touch it, his fingers create ripples, distorting the very perfection he admired. Annoyed, he tries to flatten the ripples with the palm of his hand, but this only creates more waves. In a panic, he begins to thrash at the water, trying to force it into submission, to beat it back into a state of calm. The more he struggles, the more turbulent and chaotic the water becomes, until the entire lake is a churning mess. Exhausted and defeated, he finally gives up. He collapses on the shore and simply watches. He watches as the waves he created slowly, gradually, begin to subside. He watches as the turbulence lessens, and over time, without him doing anything at all, the lake returns to its natural state of perfect, glassy stillness. We are that man, and our mind is that lake. Our thoughts are the initial ripples, our frantic attempts to suppress them, to fight them, to force them into silence, are the thrashing hands that turn a few small ripples into a raging storm. The tyranny of the racing mind is not just the presence of thoughts, but our violent struggle against them. This brings us to the very heart of the tyranny. It is a subtle but profound concept. The problem is not merely that we have thoughts. The problem is that we become attached to them. We believe them. We identify with them completely. A thought about a future worry appears, and we don't just observe it as a mental event. We grab onto it. We fuse with it. We become it. We stop saying, "A thought of anxiety has appeared in my mind," and instead we say, "I am anxious." We stop saying, "My mind is replaying a memory of embarrassment," and instead we say, "I am a failure." This is the core of the illusion. We mistake the commentary for the reality. We believe the stories that the three thieves are whispering in our ear. We treat these fleeting, insubstantial blips of neural activity as if they are solid, unchangeable truths about who we are and what our life is. This identification is the mechanism of the prison. The thoughts themselves are the bars of the cell, but it is our belief in them, our attachment to them, that locks the door and throws away the key. We become willing prisoners in a jail of our own creation, sentenced to a long night of hard labor, pacing back and forth in the tiny cell of our own recurring narratives. To recognize this tyranny is the first, most crucial step towards liberation. To lie in the dark and see the mind for what it is, a storyteller, a ghost résé, a phantom chaser, a self-critical judge. To see that its power is not inherent, but is a power we give to it through our unquestioning belief. It can feel like a bleak realization, to see how utterly we are controlled by this inner chaos. But it is not bleak. It is the beginning of hope, because the moment you can see the prison, you realize you are the observer, not just the prisoner. The moment you can hear the tyrant's voice, you realize you are the listener and not the voice itself. This recognition creates a tiny sliver of space, a crack of light in the prison wall, Having now identified this relentless internal storm, having understood that the enemy is not sleeplessness, but this untamed mind, we must find a way to stop fighting the waves. We must find an anchor, something to hold on to that is not part of the storm itself, something that can ground us in the reality of the present moment, far from the ghosts of yesterday and the phantoms of tomorrow. We must learn to find an anchor that is simple, profound, and has been with us since the moment we were born. We must turn our attention to the breath. We have stood on the shore and witnessed the chaotic storm of the racing mind. We have seen how it thrashes and churns, pulling us into the past and flinging us into the future, leaving us exhausted and lost in the dark. To be caught in such a storm is to feel like a small boat tossed on a vast, unruly ocean. Our first instinct is to fight the waves, to paddle furiously against the current. But as we have seen, this only exhausts us further and pulls us deeper into the turmoil. A wise sailor in a storm does not try to calm the ocean. Instead, they drop an anchor. The anchor does not make the storm disappear. The wind still howls. The waves still crash. But the anchor holds the boat fast, preventing it from being swept away into the abyss. It provides a point of stability in the midst of chaos. For our racing mind, we too have an anchor. It is an anchor that is available to us in every single moment. No matter how fierce the storm, it costs nothing. It requires no special equipment. And it has been with you since the moment of your birth. This first, most fundamental anchor is your own breath. The breath is a miracle of quiet design. It is the bridge between our inner and outer worlds, the invisible thread that stitches body and mind together. Think about it. Your thoughts can transport you 1,000 miles away, or 20 years into the past. Your emotions can fluctuate wildly from one moment to the next. But your breath, it is always here. It is always now. It cannot breathe in the future, and it cannot breathe in the past. Each inhalation and each exhalation is a testament to the present moment. It operates without your command. A silent, faithful servant, keeping you alive. Yet, you can also take command of it at any time, consciously drawing it in, holding it, and releasing it. It exists at the precise intersection of the voluntary and the involuntary, the conscious and the subconscious. This makes it the perfect object for our attention. When the mind is a whirlwind of unreliable stories and frightening illusions, the breath is the one thing that is always true. It is the honest rhythm of your life, happening right now. To return your attention to the breath is to return home to the safety of the present moment. The practice itself is radical in its simplicity. So simple, in fact, that the striving mind may try to complicate it. So let us be very clear. You are not being asked to breathe in any special way. You do not need to take deep, dramatic breaths or follow a complicated counting pattern. The instruction is merely to feel, to notice, to bring a gentle, curious attention to the physical sensations of your breathing, exactly as it is. You can begin by choosing a spot to rest your attention. For some, the most distinct sensation is at the tip of the nostrils. Without changing anything, simply notice the feeling of the air as it enters, perhaps slightly cool and dry, and then notice the feeling of the air as it leaves, perhaps slightly warmer and more moist. Rest your awareness right at that gateway, observing the endless, gentle rhythm of the tide coming in and the tide going out. For others, the sensation is more vivid in the body. You can place a hand gently on your abdomen and feel the soft rising on the in-breath, as your lungs fill and press the diaphragm down, and then the gentle falling on the out-breath. A natural release and letting go. There is nothing to achieve, nothing to force. Your only task is to feel this one breath, and then this one, just this. Now, we must speak of the most important part of this practice, the part where true transformation happens. As you attempt to rest your attention on the breath, your mind will wander. This is not a possibility. It is a certainty. After 1, 2, maybe 3 breaths, you will find you are suddenly no longer feeling the breath. You are in a courtroom of the past, or a movie theater of the future. You are planning, worrying, remembering, fantasizing. The moment you notice this has happened, that is the golden moment. That is the moment of mindfulness. Your mind has not failed. You have not made a mistake. The mind has simply done what minds do, what it has been trained to do for years. It has thought. The practice is not about preventing the mind from wandering. The practice is about what you do in the moment you realize it has wandered. The typical response is frustration, a flicker of self-criticism. There I go again. I can't even do this simple thing. This is the old habit, the habit of the tyrant. The new practice, the compassionate practice, is to meet this moment with softness, to smile inwardly, to say to yourself, the mind has been wandering. How interesting. And then, as gently and as lovingly as you would guide a lost child back by the hand, you simply, gently, escort your attention back to the sensation of the breath. There is a beautiful story used to illustrate this. Imagine your mind is a strong, wild water buffalo. Your attention is a herder, and the breath is the rope tied gently around the buffalo's neck. The herder's job is to walk the buffalo down a path, but the buffalo, being a buffalo, is constantly distracted. It sees a delicious patch of clover off to the side, which is a juicy worry about tomorrow, and it wanders off to graze. The unskilled herder would get angry, yanking violently on the rope, shouting at the buffalo, causing both of them immense stress. But the wise herder does not. When he notices the buffalo has strayed, he doesn't get upset. He understands this is the nature of the buffalo. He simply applies a gentle, steady pressure on the rope, a kind and patient pull, until the buffalo is guided back to the path. And a few moments later, when the buffalo wanders off again to chase a butterfly, which is a fleeting memory from childhood, the herder repeats the exact same action. Gentle, patient, persistent redirection. This is how we must treat our own mind. The thought is the patch of clover. The wandering is natural. Our job is not to punish the mind, but to gently, patiently, and persistently guide it back, again and again, to the anchor of the breath. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are rewiring your brain for peace. This gentle, attentive practice has profound effects that go far beyond a simple mental exercise. It is a direct communication with your body's deepest systems. When your mind is racing with anxiety about the future, it activates what is known as the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense. Your body is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It is preparing for a threat. Even if that threat is only an imagined thought, your body cannot go to sleep in this state of high alert. Focusing on the breath, particularly the natural lengthening of the out-breath as you relax, is a powerful signal to the opposite system, the parasympathetic nervous system. The rest and digest response following the breath is like sending a direct message to the ancient command center of your brain, telling it that there is no tiger at the cave mouth. You are safe. The battle is over. Each conscious, gentle out-breath is a biological permission slip for your entire body to begin to stand down. Your heart rate slows. Your muscles can release their unconscious grip. Your body can finally move from a state of anxious vigilance to one of peaceful rest. It is a quiet, physiological revolution, sparked by nothing more than noticing the air moving in and out of your body. So the breath becomes our first and most loyal friend in the long, dark night. It is our anchor in the storm of thought, our ever-present gateway back to the safety of the now. It is the tool we use to practice a radical new relationship with our own mind, one based not on struggle and criticism, but on patience and gentle redirection. It is the biological key that unlocks the door to deep relaxation. It doesn't promise to instantly silence the mind or force you into sleep. Its promise is more profound. It offers a place to rest, a point of stability, a way to be at peace, even while the storm of thought still rages around you. The breath is a powerful, yet invisible, anchor. It gives us our first taste of stability, but to make our foundation even stronger, to feel even more grounded in the here and now, we can turn our attention from the subtle movement of the air to something far more solid, tangible, and undeniably real. We can learn to come home to the very ground of our being, the physical vessel that carries us through this life. We can return to the body. We have found our first anchor in the breath, that invisible, rhythmic tide that pulls us back to the shore of the present moment. It is a subtle and powerful friend, but for a mind accustomed to the deafening noise of its own thoughts, it can sometimes feel too subtle, too easily lost in the storm. And so, we now turn to a second anchor, one that is solid, tangible, and impossible to deny. It is the very ground of our being, the homeland from which our thinking mind has made us feel like an exile. We are going to return to the body for most of our waking lives, and especially during our sleepless nights. We live almost exclusively in our heads. We are like kings ruling over a vast and vibrant kingdom, who have chosen to lock ourselves away in a single, small tower, endlessly studying maps and decrees, while forgetting the feeling of the earth beneath our feet and the sun on our skin. That tower is the thinking mind. That forgotten kingdom is our body. The body holds a profound and simple wisdom that the mind can never grasp. The body is always, unfailingly, in the present moment. Your shoulder, tense from a day of stress, does not worry about the meeting you have next week. Your feet, tired from standing, do not regret the path they took yesterday. They simply are. They are tense. They are tired. Right now, to bring your attention out of the world of abstract thought and into the world of physical sensation is to perform a radical act of homecoming. It is to leave the phantom realm of what if and if only, and to land squarely in the undeniable truth of what is. To facilitate this homecoming, we engage in a practice known as the body scan. This is not an exercise in analysis or judgment. It is a journey of pure discovery, a slow and loving exploration of your own physical landscape. There is no goal other than to feel. There is nothing to fix, nothing to change. The only intention is to become intimate with the sensations of your body as they are, right in this moment. So, as you lie there, allow yourself to settle. Let go of any idea that you are supposed to be feeling relaxed. Simply give yourself permission to be exactly as you are. We will begin our journey at the place furthest from the busy capital of the head. Bring your entire universe of awareness down through your body, until it comes to rest in the toes of your left foot. Can you feel them? You don't need to wiggle them. Just let your attention settle there. Perhaps you can feel the big toe, then the second toe, and so on. What sensations are present? Is there warmth, coolness, a slight tingling or pulsing? Is there the feeling of the fabric of your bedding against the skin? Or perhaps there is very little sensation at all, a kind of numbness. That is perfectly fine. Numbness is also a sensation. Just notice it with a gentle, friendly curiosity. Ah, this is what my toes feel like right now. Now, allow your awareness to expand, like soft, warm water, to encompass your entire left foot, the sole of the foot, the heel resting against the mattress, the top of the foot, again, just noticing, pulsing, pressure, warmth, stillness, whatever is there, let it be there. Then, slowly, begin to move your attention up your body, like a gentle, luminous scanner. Move into the left ankle, the lower leg, the shin bone and the calf muscle, the left knee, both the front and the back of it, and then the large, strong muscles of the left thigh. Spend a moment here, feeling the weight and solidity of this entire leg, and then gently release your focus from the left leg and shift it all the way down to the toes of your right foot, and begin the same journey again. The toes, the sole of the foot, the heel, the ankle, up into the lower leg and the knee, up into the great muscles of the right thigh. Take your time. There is no rush. You have the whole night. The purpose is not to finish. The purpose is to feel. As you do this, you are engaging in a profound act of healing. Throughout our stressful days, we accumulate and store tension in our bodies. It becomes physical armor. We clench our jaw in frustration. We hunch our shoulders in anxiety. We tighten our stomach in fear. Most of the time, we are completely unaware we are doing this. The body scan brings this unconscious holding into the gentle light of awareness. And awareness itself is a powerful solvent. You do not need to command your shoulder to relax. Often, the simple act of bringing a kind, non-judgmental attention to the knot of tension in your shoulder is enough to allow it to begin, on its own, to soften and release. You are not forcing it. You are simply noticing it. And in doing so, giving it permission to let go, you are telling that part of your body, I see you, I feel you. You don't have to hold on so tightly anymore. Now, let the scanner of your awareness move up into the core of your body, the hips, the pelvis, feeling the weight and pressure where they connect with the bed, the lower back, a common repository of stress. Can you feel its curve? Its muscles? Be exquisitely gentle here. Then move into the abdomen. Notice the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall with each breath. A soft wave of movement up into the chest, feeling the movement of the lungs expanding and the steady, reassuring beat of your heart within the rib cage. Let your attention sweep across your upper back and your shoulder blades, again noticing the points of contact with the mattress. Then, let the awareness flow down both arms simultaneously, through the upper arms, the elbows, the forearms, down into your hands and each of your fingers. Your hands are such a source of sensation. Feel the air on your skin, the contact between fingers, the energy that pulses in your palms. Then, bring your attention to the neck and throat, another area where we hold so much tension. Feel the muscles at the back and sides of the neck. And finally, let your awareness gently sweep up into your face. Soften the jaw, letting the teeth part slightly. Feel your lips, your cheeks. Soften the tiny muscles around your eyes. Feel the forehead, and imagine it becoming smooth and wide. And lastly, bring your awareness to the very top of your head, the scalp, and for a moment, just rest there, feeling the entirety of your body, from head to toe, as one single, breathing field of sensation. Think of a master sculptor who wishes to carve a magnificent statue from a block of stone. Before they lift a single tool, they spend a long time with the stone. They run their hands over it, feeling its texture, its contours, its hidden lines of strength and weakness. They don't see it as an inert object to be conquered, but as a partner in creation. To know the stone is to know how to work with it. We must become like this sculptor with our own body. The body scan is our way of learning the material. It is an act of reverence and listening, and this listening can be very simple. It can be found in the most immediate sensations. What is the feeling of the weight of your head on the pillow? Can you truly feel that pressure, that sinking? What is the feeling of the blanket over your body? Is it heavy or light? Is it warming? Can you feel the subtle pull of gravity on your limbs? A gentle, a constant force holding you to the earth. These are not small, insignificant details. They are direct portals to reality. Each time you drop your awareness into one of these simple, physical truths, you are stepping out of the chaotic, unreliable world of thought and into the calm, solid world of being. The mind tells stories. The body tells the truth. By establishing the body as our second anchor, we create a powerful counterweight to the tyranny of the mind. We are giving our awareness a home, a place to live that is not inside the noisy tower of our head. By fully inhabiting the kingdom of the body, we leave less space for the ghosts of regret and the phantoms of anxiety to roam. The more we are grounded in the feeling of our feet, our hands, our breath, the less we are swept away by the stories in our mind. We now have two profound friends for the night: the flowing, rhythmic anchor of the breath, and the solid, stable anchor of the body. We are no longer adrift. We have a place to rest our attention, a safe harbor from the storm. But even as we rest here, held by our anchors, we might notice a new, subtle tension arising, a feeling of effort, a sense of I am trying to relax, or am I doing this right? This very effort, this desire to achieve a result, can become its own obstacle. And so, we must now turn to face the most profound and essential paradox on our journey toward restful peace. We must investigate why our best efforts are destined to fail, and how true peace is found not in striving, but in surrender. We have now equipped ourselves with two powerful anchors. With the breath, we have found a rhythm to return to. With the body, we have found a solid ground on which to rest. We can be lying in the dark, and by shifting our attention to these anchors, we can find moments of genuine stability. Even as the storm of thought continues to blow, we are no longer entirely lost at sea. Yet, as we hold on to these anchors, a new and subtle adversary often emerges. It is the feeling of effort, the sense that we are doing a practice, the thought, I am trying to be calm, or I am working hard to relax. We bring to our rest the same mindset we bring to our work, one of striving, goal setting, and performance evaluation. And here we stand before the great and central paradox of sleep, a truth so counterintuitive to our modern minds that it can be the hardest lesson to learn. In the journey towards sleep, all of your strength, all of your willpower, and all of your determined effort will not only fail to help you, they will actively work against you. The path to sleep is not a climb, it is a fall. It is not an act of doing, but an act of undoing. Let us first consider the very nature of sleep. It is not an achievement. It is not a task you can check off a list. It is a state of surrender. Sleep is what happens when you let go of the reins. Think of it like digestion. You can consciously choose to eat a meal, but you cannot consciously command your stomach to break down the food. The process is involuntary, a function of the body's innate intelligence. You simply provide the conditions, the food, and then you must trust the body to do its work. Sleep is precisely the same. It is a neurological and physiological process of letting go of conscious thought, letting go of muscle control, letting go of your very sense of self as you drift into dreams. The part of you that tries, the executive function, the will, is the very part of you that must go to sleep for sleep to happen. Therefore, any act of trying to sleep is a declaration from the will that it is still awake, still in charge, and still on duty. You are flexing the very muscle that needs to become completely limp. You are, in effect, sending the sentry to guard the gate, and then wondering why the castle will not sleep. This paradox has a clear and undeniable basis in our own biology. When you lie in bed and the thought arises, I must sleep now, or I have to get to sleep, you have just created a high-stakes performance goal. Your mind, being the problem solver that it is, interprets this as a critical mission. This sense of pressure immediately triggers the sympathetic nervous system, the body's alarm system. It begins to release stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate might increase slightly. Your blood pressure rises. Your mind becomes more focused and alert because it has been given a problem to solve. Make sleep happen. Your body enters a state of quiet, vigilant alertness. This is the biological signature of fight or flight, a state designed to help you handle a threat. The irony is catastrophic. In the very act of demanding sleep, you have created the perfect biochemical conditions for wakefulness. You are pressing the accelerator to the floor while pleading with the car to roll to a stop. You are fanning the flames while begging the fire to go out. The harder you try, the more alert you become, and the further sleep recedes from your grasp. This brings us to the absurdity of a phrase we often use: I am trying to relax. Let us hold those words in our mind for a moment. Trying to relax. The word try is a word of effort, of striving, of tension, of moving toward a goal. The word relax means the cessation of effort, the release of tension, the letting go of goals. The two words are oil and water. They are fundamentally opposed. To try to relax is a perfect contradiction in terms. It is like shouting for silence or fighting for peace. True relaxation is not something you can achieve or conquer. It is the state that remains when the effort of trying has been completely abandoned. It cannot be hunted down. It can only be invited in. And it only accepts the invitation when it knows the hunt has been called off. As long as you are trying, you are broadcasting a signal of tension throughout your nervous system. Relaxation hears this signal and knows it is not yet welcome. It waits patiently for the striving to cease. There is a timeless story from the philosopher Chuang Tzu about an archer that perfectly illustrates this human dilemma. When the archer is competing for a simple prize, like a plain clay pot, he shoots with effortless grace. His body is relaxed, his mind is clear, and the arrow flies straight and true to the heart of the target. His full skill is present because nothing is at stake. When the prize is changed to a buckle made of polished brass, he becomes a little more careful. He is conscious of his stance, his grip, his breath. His desire for the prize makes him slightly tense, and his aim is not quite as fluid, not quite as perfect. But when the prize is a treasure of solid gold, the archer is completely undone. He is blinded by the value of the prize. His mind is filled with thoughts of winning and fears of losing. He sees two targets instead of one. His hands tremble. He can barely draw the bowstring. His skill has not vanished. It has been paralyzed by the intensity of his desire. Chuang Tzu says that the prize has robbed him of his power. For us, lying in the dark, sleep is that prize of solid gold. The more desperately we crave it, the more we value it, the more we are paralyzed. Our natural, innate ability to fall asleep is hijacked by the sheer force of our wanting it. So what are we to do? If trying is futile and wanting is a trap, what is the way forward? The solution is a radical act of reframing. We must change the goal. We must take the golden prize off its pedestal. The new intention, the new mantra for the night, becomes this: my goal is not to fall asleep. My goal for this moment is simply to rest. Feel the profound difference between those two statements. Sleep is a conditional outcome. It may happen, or it may not. It is not under your direct control. But rest is entirely under your control. Rest is unconditional. It is available to you right now, and in the next moment, and the next. Rest is simply the act of lying still, of allowing your body to be supported by the bed, of allowing your muscles to be soft, of breathing. That is all. You can be resting perfectly, even when your mind is awake. This reframing is an act of profound self-compassion. It removes the entire economy of success and failure from the night. If your goal is simply to rest, then by lying in bed, you are already succeeding. There is nothing more to do. You can tell yourself, my body is resting, my cells are repairing, my heart is resting, I am conserving energy for the day to come. This is a productive and valuable use of my time. This is enough. Paradoxically, when you truly, deeply accept this, when you let go of the need for sleep and embrace the gift of rest, you create the perfect, pressure-free conditions for sleep to arise on its own. Sleep is a shy visitor. It will only enter the room when it knows you are no longer watching the door. Therefore, the path to peace at night is not a path of addition, but one of subtraction. It is not about learning a new trick, but about unlearning a lifetime of striving. It is the gentle art of surrender. We must learn to let go of our effort, let go of our control, and let go of our attachment to the golden prize of sleep. But this surrender is not always easy. It begs the question, what is it that we are holding on to so tightly? What is the weight that makes this letting go so difficult? Often, it is the unresolved baggage of the day that has just passed. It is the mental and emotional residue of our work, our interactions, our worries, and our plans. To truly surrender to the night, we must first learn how to consciously set down the burdens of the day. We have arrived at a profound understanding. Our relentless effort, our desperate striving for sleep, is the very thing that pushes it away. We have seen that the path forward is one of surrender, of letting go. But this immediately raises a crucial question. Surrendering is easy when your hands are empty. But how can you let go when your arms are full? What are we carrying so late into the night that makes this surrender feel impossible? The answer is simple. We are carrying the day. We are carrying its conversations, its frustrations, its unfinished tasks, its small victories, and its perceived failures. Our mind is like a faithful but foolish servant who, at the end of a long journey, refuses to set down the heavy luggage, instead carrying it with them as they try to rest. To learn the art of surrender, we must first learn the art of setting things down. We must consciously and skillfully let go of the day that has passed. Think of your mind as a modern computer. Throughout the day, every task you perform, every email you read, every worry that crosses your mind, every plan you make, is like opening a new tab in your internet browser. By the end of the day, you have dozens, perhaps hundreds of these tabs open. There's the worry about that upcoming deadline tab. There's the replay, that awkward conversation tab. There's the don't forget to buy milk tomorrow tab. There's the what did that person really mean by that comment tab. During the day, we are so busy clicking on new things that we don't notice how much processing power is being used by all these open loops. But at night, when we close our eyes and try to shut down, the system doesn't go quiet. Instead, the processor starts cycling through all the open tabs, one by one, over and over again. The mind, in its diligence, is trying to make sure nothing gets lost. It keeps pushing these unresolved tabs to the front of your awareness, preventing the system from entering sleep mode. Letting go of the day is the process of consciously closing each of these tabs, one by one, until the screen of the mind is clear and blank. To do this, we can employ a simple but profoundly effective ritual. It is the ritual of externalization, often called a brain dump or a worry journal. About 30 minutes to an hour before you intend to go to bed, sit down with a simple pen and a plain piece of paper. This is not a diary for elaborate emotional prose. It is a pragmatic tool for emptying the mind. Create 2 columns. At the top of one, write to do. At the top of the other, write to worry about. Then, begin to write. Under the to-do column, list every single nagging task that your mind might try to remind you of in the middle of the night. No task is too small or too big. Email that client. Schedule dentist appointment. Buy cat food. Figure out pension plan. Get it all out of your head and onto the paper. Then, turn to the "to worry about" column. Write down every anxiety, every fear, every rumination that is taking up space in your mind. Worried about the presentation, anxious about my mother's health, replaying that stupid thing I said. Do not judge or filter, just let the words flow onto the page. The act of writing is a magical act of transfer. You are taking the chaotic, looping, ephemeral thoughts from inside your mind and giving them a concrete, stable form outside of yourself. You are telling your brain, with this physical action, I have captured you. You are safe here on this page. You will not be forgotten. Your job is done for the night. You are now relieved of your duty to keep shouting this at me. The notepad becomes a physical container for the day's anxieties, allowing the mind to finally have the space to become quiet. Once you have emptied the mind of its burdens, it is wise to fill it with something nourishing. The mind has what psychologists call a negativity bias. It is naturally drawn to threats, problems, and things that have gone wrong. It's an ancient survival mechanism. To counteract this, we must consciously practice gratitude. After you have closed your worry journal, take a moment, close your eyes, and bring to mind 3 specific, small things from your day for which you are genuinely grateful. Specificity is the key. It is not enough to say I'm grateful for my job. That is an abstract concept. Instead, recall a specific moment. I am grateful for that 5-minute period this morning when the sun was on my face as I drank my coffee. I am grateful for the sound of my friend's laughter on the phone. I am grateful for the feeling of satisfaction after I finally sent that difficult email. By focusing on these small, concrete moments of goodness, you are actively shifting your brain's chemistry. You are moving it from a state of problem solving and threat detection to a state of contentment and appreciation. You are changing the emotional flavor of your mind from bitter anxiety to a quiet sweetness, creating a fertile ground for peaceful rest. There is a famous Zen story that perfectly captures the essence of this practice. 2 monks were on a long pilgrimage. They came to a river with a strong current. A young and beautiful woman was standing there, afraid to cross, without a word. The older, senior monk hoisted the woman onto his back, waded through the churning water, and set her down gently on the other side. He then continued his journey. The younger monk followed, his face a mask of thunder. He was horrified. Monks were strictly forbidden from touching women, let alone carrying them in such an intimate way. For the next several hours, he walked in agitated silence, replaying the scene in his mind, building his righteous indignation. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? You know our vows. You are forbidden to touch a woman." The senior monk looked at him, his eyes full of genuine surprise. He replied softly, "Brother, I put that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? We are all." So often, the younger monk, we carry our day with us long after it is over. We carry the difficult boss, the frustrating traffic jam, the thoughtless comment from a partner. We carry them with us, right into our sanctuary of rest. The practice of letting go of the day is the practice of becoming the senior monk. It is the practice of learning to put the day down when it is finished. The journaling, the gratitude. These are the ways we consciously set our burdens down on the riverbank. To seal this practice, we can create one final, powerful boundary. We can transform the very act of entering our bedroom into a sacred ritual. Think of your bedroom door not just as a piece of wood, but as a threshold, a gateway between two different worlds. Outside the door is the world of doing, of striving, of problem-solving, the world of the day. Inside the door is the world of being, of resting, of surrender, the world of the night. When you are ready for bed, stand at the threshold for a moment. Take one conscious breath, and as you close the door, create a silent intention. As this door closes, the day is now officially over. All its work is done. All its worries are left outside. This space is for rest, and for rest alone. By repeating this simple ritual, you train your mind. Just as a dog learns to salivate at the sound of a bell, your mind will learn that the closing of the bedroom door is the signal to begin the process of letting go. The room itself becomes a sanctuary, a haven whose very atmosphere whispers, "Peace, be still, let go." These end-of-day rituals are not just quaint habits. They are essential mental and spiritual hygiene. They are the conscious and skillful means by which we unburden our minds, close the open tabs, and set our heavy luggage down on the riverbank. They are our commitment to entering the night with hands empty, ready for the surrender of sleep. But what of those nights when we do everything right? We have anchored in our breath and body. We have abandoned striving. We have set down the day. And yet, we still find ourselves lying there, awake in the quiet dark. This calls for another step. A step that is perhaps the most courageous of all. It requires that we stop seeing wakefulness itself as our final enemy. It requires us to turn and face it, not with fear or frustration, but with a radical and gentle curiosity. It requires that we learn how to befriend the state of being awake. We have come so far on our journey into the night. We have learned to drop our anchors of breath and body, grounding ourselves in the present moment. We have seen the futility of striving, the great paradox that our desperate effort is what keeps peace at bay. We have practiced the sacred ritual of setting down the day, leaving its burdens by the riverbank before entering our sanctuary of rest. We have done everything we are supposed to do, and yet, here we are. It is 3 a.m. Our body is still, our mind is clear, but we are undeniably, irrefutably awake. This is the moment of truth. This is the final battleground where so much of our suffering is born. It is the war we wage against wakefulness itself. We treat being awake as a personal failure, a defect, a terrible affliction we must conquer. But what if this war is fundamentally unwinnable? What if the very act of fighting is the sole cause of all our casualties? What if peace can only be found not in victory, but in a radical, unconditional ceasefire? There is a simple law of physics and of the mind. That which you resist persists. Imagine trying to hold a large, inflatable beach ball underwater. It requires a tremendous amount of constant, straining effort. Your muscles are tense. You are fighting the ball's natural buoyancy, and the water around you is a churning, splashing mess. The struggle is exhausting. This is the experience of resisting wakefulness. Your mind is the beach ball, naturally buoyant with awareness. Your will is the straining arms, trying to force it down into the depths of unconsciousness. The churning water is the anxiety, frustration, and suffering created by the struggle. Now, imagine what happens. The moment you let go, the ball simply pops up to the surface. It floats there, effortlessly. The struggle is over. The water becomes calm. The ball has not gone away, but the fight has ended. Acceptance is the act of letting go of the beach ball. It is the choice to stop fighting the natural buoyancy of your own consciousness. It is the understanding that the tension comes not from the ball, but from the effort of holding it down. This understanding can be transformed into a practice, a lifeline, in the moment of your greatest frustration. When you are lying there, feeling that familiar hot wave of panic and anger rise within you. Not again. Why can't I just sleep? Pause. Feel that resistance in your body, that clenching in your jaw, that tightening in your chest. And then, as an experiment in kindness, offer yourself a new set of words. You can say them silently, in your own mind. Okay, I see that I am awake right now. My mind is active. My body is not sleeping. For this moment, I am going to stop fighting it. I accept that I am awake. It's okay. Breathe into those words. Let them sink in. I am awake. And it is okay. This is not a statement of defeat. It is a declaration of peace. It is a radical act of self-compassion. It is a command sent to your entire nervous system to stand down from high alert. You are calling a truce in the civil war that has been raging within you. You may have to repeat this truce every few minutes. The habit of resistance is strong, but each time you do it, you are choosing peace over struggle. You are letting the beach ball float. When you practice this, you begin to notice a crucial distinction. There are, in fact, two very different kinds of wakefulness you can experience at night. The first, and most familiar, is anxious wakefulness. This is the state created by resistance. In this state, your body is tense. Your heart may be beating a little too fast. Your mind is filled with catastrophic stories. This is terrible. I will be a wreck tomorrow. I won't be able to function. My health is suffering. You feel like a victim, a prisoner trapped in a sleepless torture chamber. The second state, the one we are inviting, is peaceful wakefulness. In this state, the body is deeply relaxed. Even though the mind is conscious, you are resting. The breath is calm and even the mind might still have thoughts. But there is no struggle with them. There is a quality of quiet observation, of simple presence. It feels like sitting in a comfortable chair, in a quiet, dimly lit room. You are not asleep, but you are at peace. The goal, then, undergoes a profound shift. It is no longer a desperate leap across a chasm from awake to asleep. It is a gentle, manageable slide along a spectrum. From anxious wakefulness toward peaceful wakefulness. You may not be able to force sleep, but you always have the power to lessen your resistance. And in doing so, you can always move closer to peace. The great Thai meditation master, Ajahn Chah, told a story about his time living in a simple forest hut. One monsoon season, in the middle of a dark and stormy night, his roof began to leak. Drip, drip, drip. A puddle began to form on the floor. The common reaction, the reaction of resistance, would be to get angry, to feel frustrated, to curse the shoddy roof and the relentless rain. The mind would be filled with stories of grievance. Now my floor is wet. My robes will get damp. I can't sleep with this dripping sound. But Ajahn Chah, being a master of acceptance, did not do this. He simply observed the reality of the situation. He noted, the roof is leaking. He did not fight the rain, for he knew he could not stop it. Instead, he got up calmly, found an empty bowl, and placed it on the floor directly under the drip. He then lay back down. The irritating sound of water splashing on his floor was transformed into the pleasant, rhythmic, and contained sound of water plinking into a bowl. He had not stopped the rain. He had simply changed his relationship to it. He accepted the reality of the leak and worked with it wisely. Our wakefulness is the rain. Our resistance is the anger at the leaky roof. Our acceptance is the simple, wise act of placing the bowl. We cannot stop the rain of consciousness, but we can stop making ourselves miserable about it. This leads us to the final, liberating realization of this practice. Wakefulness itself is not the enemy. Wakefulness itself is a neutral state. It contains no inherent suffering. A baby can lie awake in its crib for an hour, gurgling and content. You might be awake on a long overnight flight, reading a book peacefully. The suffering is not in the state of being awake. The suffering is entirely in our judgment of the state. It is in the story we tell ourselves about being awake. The story is, this is bad. This is a problem. This is going to ruin everything. This story is the source of all the tension, all the anxiety, all the pain. The real enemy is not wakefulness. It is non-acceptance. It is the second arrow we fire into ourselves. The first arrow is the simple fact of being awake. The second, far more painful arrow, is our reaction of fear and anger against it. To befriend wakefulness is simply to make the conscious choice not to fire that second arrow. You lay down your bow and quiver. This practice of acceptance is not one of passive resignation. It is not giving up. It is an act of profound wisdom and strength. It is the courage to meet reality as it is, without demanding that it be different. It is the compassionate act of laying down your weapons and declaring peace with your own experience. By befriending wakefulness, you rob it of its power to harm you. You transform the torture chamber into a quiet sanctuary, a space where your body can find deep and profound rest. Even if your mind has not yet crossed the threshold into sleep, you have made peace with the state of being. But now, in this newfound peace, in this quiet, accepting space, we are still left with one final companion, the parade of thoughts that continues to drift through the mind. We have made peace with the room. But what of the characters on the stage? This calls for a new skill, not one of resistance, and not just one of acceptance, but one of elegant and skillful non-engagement. We have made a courageous peace. We have laid down our weapons and signed a truce with wakefulness itself. We are resting in a quiet, accepting space, no longer fighting the reality of the present moment. The war is over, but into this newfound stillness, the thoughts still come. A memory floats into view. A plan for tomorrow begins to form. A faint echo of a worry appears on the horizon. In the past, these were the enemy combatants, each one a threat to be wrestled with or eliminated. But now, in this state of peace, our relationship to them must also change. We have stopped fighting them, but the old habit of engaging with them is still strong. A thought appears, and instinctively, We follow it. We invite it in for tea. We listen to its story. We get caught up in its drama. And before we know it, we are no longer resting peacefully. We are lost in the labyrinth of our own mind once more. This calls for a new skill, a final, subtle art. It is the art of non-engagement. It is learning to let the thoughts come and go, without offering them a place to land. To learn this art, we must begin with a foundational shift in identity. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which your thoughts arise. This is perhaps the single most liberating realization you can have. Imagine you are the sky, the vast, open, limitless sky. Your nature is spaciousness, clarity, and peace. It is always present, always whole. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations are like the weather. They are the clouds that drift through you. The sky, some clouds are dark and menacing, filled with the thunder of anxiety and the lightning of anger. Some clouds are light and wispy, pleasant memories that drift by on a summer breeze. Some are just a uniform, grey blanket of boredom or dullness. The weather is constantly changing, but no matter how violent the storm or how beautiful the sunset, the sky itself is never harmed, never stained, and never fundamentally changed by the clouds that pass through it. The sky simply allows the weather to be what it is. Our practice is to learn to identify not with the ever-changing weather of our mind, but with the vast, stable, and peaceful sky of our own awareness. You are the sky, not the cloud. This may sound abstract, but it can be made very practical with a simple technique. It is a gentle method of noting or labeling as you rest in your peaceful wakefulness, your attention anchored lightly on the breath or the body. You will inevitably notice that a thought has hooked you. The moment you realize, I've been lost in thought. That is the moment of mindfulness. In that moment, instead of criticizing yourself, you gently and silently apply a label to the thought. If you were worrying about money, you simply note, worrying. If you were mentally rehearsing a conversation for tomorrow, you note, planning. If a memory from your past appeared, you note, remembering. If you were judging your inability to sleep, you note, judging. The labels are soft, simple, and neutral. They are not meant to analyze the thought, but simply to acknowledge its presence and its category. The act of labeling is incredibly powerful. It instantly creates a sliver of separation. It shifts your perspective from being the main character in the story of the thought to being the audience member, observing the story. The moment you can label a thought as worrying, you are no longer just a worrier. You are the awareness that is noticing the process of worrying. And after you apply the label, you do the same thing every time. You gently, without force, guide your attention back to your anchor, back to the feeling of the breath or the weight of your body. To reinforce this skill, we can use other powerful images. Imagine you are sitting on a grassy bank next to a slow-moving stream. The water is clear, and you are simply watching it flow. Each thought that arises in your mind is like a single leaf that appears at the head of the stream. You simply watch it. A leaf called regret floats by. You note it, and watch it drift downstream and out of sight. Then a leaf called to-do list comes along. You watch it. Too, you don't need to reach into the water to grab the leaves. You don't need to examine them or judge them. And you certainly don't need to jump into the stream and be carried away by the current. Your only job is to remain on the bank, watching the endless, natural procession of leaves. Or imagine your mind is a grand, quiet train station at night. Your awareness is the station platform. Thoughts are the trains that arrive. A sleek, fast train called anxiety about health pulls into the station. Its doors open, inviting you aboard. But you don't have to get on. You can simply stand on the platform and notice. The anxiety train has arrived. You can watch it with a detached curiosity, and you can watch as it eventually pulls away, its lights disappearing into the darkness. You remain on the platform, still and waiting, ready to observe whatever train arrives next. You are the platform, not the passenger. When you practice this art of non-engagement, you begin to understand something profound about the nature of thoughts themselves. Thoughts are like small fires. They need fuel to burn. The fuel for a thought is your attention, your belief, and your engagement. When an anxious thought appears and you immediately grab it, feed it with more anxious thoughts, and believe its catastrophic story, you are throwing gasoline on the fire. It quickly grows from a small spark into a raging inferno that consumes your peace. But when you practice non-engagement, you are consciously choosing to withhold the fuel. You see the spark appear. You label it worrying and you return your attention to the cool, calming anchor of the breath. You are not trying to douse the fire with water, which would be an act of resistance. You are simply allowing it to burn itself out from lack of fuel. A thought that is not fed with the energy of your attention will naturally lose its momentum. It flickers for a moment in your awareness, and then, like a dying ember, it dissolves back into the vast, empty space of the mind from which it arose. You do not need to destroy your thoughts. You only need to stop feeding them. This is the path of true mental freedom. So we learn to rest as the sky. We allow the clouds of thought, the weather of the mind, to pass through us without resistance and without engagement. We understand that our true nature is not the fleeting storm, but the vast, silent, and peaceful expanse that holds the storm. This sky of awareness is always available to you. It is your ultimate refuge. It is who you truly are. Beneath the noise and the stories, the practice of watching your thoughts is the practice of learning to abide in this sky-like nature, finding a peace that is not dependent on the absence of clouds, but is present even in the midst of them. As we become more skilled at this, as we witness thousands of thoughts arise and pass away without our interference, we gain a direct and intimate insight into the very mechanics of how our own suffering is created. We see, in real time, the difference between a simple event and our reaction to it. This fundamental process, the very engine of our daily discontent, is described perfectly in a simple, ancient story told by the Buddha. It is a story that clarifies, with stunning precision, the crucial difference between the pain that life sometimes brings us and the suffering that we needlessly add on top of it. As we rest in the quiet of the night, practicing the art of non-engagement, we begin to see the workings of our mind with a new clarity. We watch as a thought appears, and we watch our own ingrained tendency to react to it. We see a sensation arise in the body, and we notice the immediate story of judgment that the mind attaches to it. In this space of observation, we are witnessing, in real time, the birth of our own suffering. We are discovering for ourselves a truth that the Buddha articulated over 2,500 years ago. It is a teaching so simple, so practical, and so profound that understanding it can fundamentally change our relationship with every difficulty we ever face. It is the teaching of the two arrows. The Buddha said that when an ordinary person, one who has not trained their mind, experiences a painful feeling, it is like being struck by an arrow. The feeling might be a physical pain, a headache, a stomach cramp, the ache of a tired body, or it might be a mental pain, the sting of a harsh word, the pang of loneliness, the sorrow of a loss. This first arrow is an unavoidable part of human life. As long as we have a body and a heart, we will sometimes experience pain. No amount of wisdom or meditation can make us entirely immune to the first arrows of existence. But, the Buddha continued, the ordinary person does not stop there. Immediately after being struck by the first arrow, they react. They resist the pain. They become consumed with aversion to it. They think, "This is awful. Why is this happening to me? I can't stand this feeling." They worry about what the pain means and how long it will last. This reaction of resistance, of anger, of fear, and of storytelling, the Buddha said, is like being struck by a second arrow, right in the very same spot as the first. It is this second arrow, he taught, that is the source of true suffering. It is the arrow that poisons the wound. Then, the Buddha described a wise person, one who has trained their mind. When the wise person is struck by the first arrow, they feel the pain, just like anyone else. They do not deny it or pretend it isn't there. They feel the sting, the ache, the sorrow. However, they do not react with resistance or aversion. They do not add a layer of mental anguish on top of the physical or emotional pain. They simply observe the raw sensation of the first arrow with a calm and steady acceptance. They do not shoot themselves with the second arrow. Therefore, the Buddha concluded, the wise person experiences the painful feelings of life, but they do not experience the far greater agony of suffering. They feel the pain of the first arrow, but they are spared the poison of the second. This ancient story is a perfect map of our experience with insomnia. Let us apply it with absolute clarity. The first arrow is the simple, physical reality of being awake. It is the sensation of energy in your body when you wish there was none. It is the awareness of your mind being active when you wish it were quiet. It is the raw, unfiltered data of the present moment. I am awake. This first arrow can be uncomfortable. It can be unpleasant, but in and of itself, it is just a fact, a neutral event. Its power to cause genuine suffering is actually quite limited. The real problem, the source of the nightly torture, is the vast arsenal of second arrows that we immediately begin firing at ourselves. The moment we recognize the first arrow of wakefulness, we reach into our quiver. We pull out the arrow of fear and we shoot it deep. I will be so tired tomorrow. I will fail at my work. I won't be able to cope. Then we pull out the arrow of anger. This is so unfair. Why is my body betraying me like this? I hate this feeling. Then comes the arrow of self-judgment. I am broken. There is something wrong with me. I'm a failure at the simple human act of sleeping. We follow it with the arrow of catastrophizing. This is never going to end. I am going to be a sleepless wreck for the rest of my life. My health will be ruined. We shoot the arrow of comparison, imagining that everyone else in the world is sleeping soundly. which only deepens our sense of isolation. Each of these thoughts, each of these reactions, is a self-inflicted wound. The misery, the desperation, the feeling of being trapped and tormented, these do not come from the first arrow of wakefulness. They come entirely from the volley of second arrows we unleash upon ourselves. The exhaustion we feel the next day is often less from the lack of sleep and more from the sheer depletion of spending hours at war with ourselves. A brutal and bloody internal battle. The practices we have been exploring are nothing less than the training in how to not shoot the second arrow. They are the skills of the wise person. When you choose to anchor your attention in the breath or the body, you are choosing to stay with the raw sensation of the first arrow, without getting swept away by the stories of the second. When you practice acceptance, you are consciously making the decision to lay down the bow of resistance. When you practice non-engagement, you are learning to see the second arrows, the thoughts of fear, anger, and judgment for what they are. You see them flying toward you, and instead of letting them strike, you simply note, there is the arrow of fear, or there is the arrow of judgment, and you let them fly past. Harmlessly, you realize you don't have to be a target. This teaching empowers us completely. It moves us from the position of a helpless victim to one of a conscious participant in our own well-being. We cannot always control the first arrows of life. We will all face pain, loss, sickness, and, for some of us, sleepless nights. But the second arrow is ours to control. The story we tell, the resistance we generate, the suffering we create, that is our domain. Our peace of mind is not determined by whether the first arrow strikes, but by whether we choose to shoot the second. This is where our freedom lies, to become truly skillful at dodging these second arrows. However, it is not enough to simply practice when we are already in the midst of the nightly battle. A soldier does not wait until the war has started to learn how to use their tools. They train in times of peace, to cultivate a mind that is resilient to the second arrows of the night. We must practice this same wisdom during our waking hours. We must learn to meet the small first arrows of the day, the traffic jam, the spilled coffee, the critical email, with a calm and accepting mind. We must learn to sow the seeds of a peaceful night in the very soil of our busy, demanding days. Our practice must extend beyond the bedroom and into every corner of our lives. We have uncovered a profound secret about our own minds. Our suffering comes not from life's first arrows, but from the second arrows of our own reaction. Our peace, therefore, lies not in controlling the world, but in learning to respond wisely. This is a liberating insight, but it also presents a challenge. The habit of reacting, of firing that second arrow, is deeply ingrained. It is an unconscious reflex honed over a lifetime. To change such a deep habit, it is not enough to simply practice when we are already under duress. In the dark of the night, a person who wants to be strong does not only lift weights when they are called upon to move something heavy. They train every day, building their strength gradually, so that when the challenge arrives, they are prepared. We too must train our minds during the day, so that we may be strong and peaceful during the night. The quality of your night is a direct reflection of the quality of your day. Imagine a gardener who desires a beautiful, bountiful harvest of vegetables in the autumn. Would this gardener ignore their garden all spring and summer, allowing it to be baked by the sun, overrun with weeds, and eaten by insects? only to show up the night before the harvest with a watering can and a spade. Hoping for a miracle? Of course not. A beautiful harvest is not an event. It is the culmination of a process. It is the result of daily, patient, and diligent cultivation. It is the reward for months of preparing the soil, planting the seeds, watering, weeding, and protecting the young plants. Our mind is this garden. A peaceful, restorative night's sleep is the harvest. The anxieties, worries, and frantic thoughts are the weeds that choke the life out of our peace. The practice of mindfulness in our daily life is the patient, daily act of tending to this inner garden. We cannot live a frantic, distracted, and unconscious day and then expect a calm, a spacious, and peaceful mind to magically manifest the moment our head hits the pillow. A peaceful night is the natural harvest of a mindfully lived day. So how do we practice this inner gardening? We begin by weaving moments of mindfulness into the very fabric of our ordinary activities. Let us start with eating. Most of us eat mindlessly. We eat while scrolling on our phones, while watching television, while driving, while working. We barely taste the food. We simply consume fuel. To eat mindfully is to transform this routine into a rich, sensory meditation. Before you take the first bite, pause. Look at the food on your plate. Notice the colors, the shapes, the textures. Take a moment to smell the aromas. Then, take a single bite. As you chew, put your fork down. Close your eyes if you wish. Simply experience the sensations in your mouth. What are the flavors? Sweet, salty, sour, bitter. What are the textures? Soft, crunchy, smooth. By bringing your full attention to this simple act, you are anchoring yourself firmly in the present moment. You are training your mind to be where your body is. You are cultivating calm and appreciation, watering the seeds of peace. Next, consider the act of walking. We walk all the time, but usually, our mind is somewhere else entirely. We are walking to the car while thinking about the first meeting of the day. We are walking from our desk to the kitchen while replaying a difficult conversation. Mindful walking, or walking meditation, is the practice of simply walking. As you walk, bring your attention to the physical sensations of movement. Feel the sole of your foot as it makes contact with the ground. Notice the subtle shift of weight from one leg to the other. Feel the movement in your hips and legs, the gentle swing of your arms. Feel the air on your skin. You don't need to be in a special place to do this. You can practice walking mindfully from your car to the office door, or from your living room to your bedroom. Each step becomes an anchor to the present, a tiny repetition that trains the mind to stay, rather than to wander. Perhaps one of the most powerful areas for daily practice is in our communication. So often, when we are in a conversation, we are not truly listening. We are busy formulating our response, waiting for our turn to speak, judging what the other person is saying, or thinking about something else entirely. Mindful listening is the practice of offering someone the gift of your full, non-judgmental attention. You listen not just to their words, but to the feeling behind the words. You notice their body language, their tone of voice. This practice not only deepens your connection with others, but it dramatically reduces the mental residue you carry away from conversations. Because you are fully present, There is no need to replay the conversation later, wondering what they meant or what you should have said. The interaction feels complete. A primary cause of our modern, fractured attention is the myth of multitasking. We believe we are being efficient when we are talking on the phone while answering an email while keeping an eye on a news feed. But neurologically, we are not multitasking. We are task switching. The brain is rapidly and exhaustingly jumping from one focus to another. This trains the mind for distraction. It builds the mental habit of jumping. A mind that has been trained for 8 hours a day to leap from one thing to another cannot be expected to suddenly lie still and be calm at night. It will continue to do what it has been trained to do, jump from thought to thought to thought. The antidote is the practice of monotasking. When you are writing an email, just write the email. Close all other tabs. Put your phone away. When you are drinking a cup of tea, just drink the tea. Experience its warmth, its aroma, its taste. This practice of doing one thing at a time builds the muscle of concentration. It teaches the mind how to be still, how to stay. This is invaluable training for the stillness of the night. When we weave these practices into our day, a remarkable thing happens. We arrive at the evening with a lighter mind. A day lived mindfully is a day more fully processed and completed in real time. We are constantly closing the tabs as we go. We are not accumulating a huge backlog of unresolved mental and emotional baggage that needs to be dealt with at night. The process of letting go of the day becomes infinitely easier because we have been letting go, moment by moment, all day long. We have been tending our garden, so at the end of the day, there are far fewer weeds to pull. So you see, a peaceful night is not an accident, and it is not a battle to be won in the dark. It is a natural consequence. It is the fruit that grows on the tree of a mindful life. Every mindful bite of food, every mindful step, every fully heard conversation, every moment of single-pointed focus is a seed of peace that you are planting for the night to come. And as you practice this paying attention, as you watch your daily life with this new clarity, you begin to notice something profound. You see not just the events of your life, but you see their nature. You see them arise. You see them exist for a time, and you see them pass away. The pleasant feeling from a good meal arises and passes. The frustration from a traffic jam arises and passes. A thought arises, and it passes. This direct, first-hand experience of the constant, ceaseless flow of life leads us to a core insight of Buddhist wisdom, a truth that can provide immense comfort and perspective, especially during the long, dark hours of a sleepless night. It is the deep, liberating wisdom of impermanence. As we commit to the daily practice of mindfulness, patiently tending to our inner garden, we begin to perceive the world through a new lens. We see with undeniable clarity a universal law that governs everything, from the vast galaxies to the most fleeting thought in our own mind. It is the law of change, of flux, of impermanence. In the ancient language of the Buddha, this is called anicca. Nothing is static. Nothing is permanent. Everything that arises must, inevitably, pass away. A joyful feeling appears, crests like a wave, and dissolves back into the ocean of our being. A painful emotion emerges, grips us for a time, and then it too loosens its hold and vanishes. The clouds in the sky, the cells in our body, the seasons of the year, The very thoughts we believe to be so solidal are part of a vast, ceaseless, and elegant dance of arising and ceasing. Understanding this truth, not just as an idea, but as a felt reality, is one of the most powerful sources of peace we can ever discover. It is our greatest ally, especially when we are lost in the dark. When you are lying in bed at night, caught in the grip of wakefulness, the experience can feel intensely solid, permanent, and personal. It can feel like a solid brick wall that you are endlessly crashing against. The thought arises, I am awake, and it quickly becomes, I am always awake. And then, I will never get to sleep. The mind takes a snapshot of the present uncomfortable moment and projects it into an infinite, terrifying future. This is the mechanism of despair. The wisdom of impermanence is the tool that shatters this frozen, solid illusion. It reminds us that we are not trapped in a block of ice. We are floating in a constantly moving river. In that moment of feeling trapped, you can introduce a simple, gentle, and profoundly true contemplation. You can say to yourself, silently, like a mantra, this too shall pass. Let this not be a form of desperate wishful thinking, but a calm statement of fact. You are aligning your mind with the fundamental law of the universe. Consider the evidence. Has there ever been a night that lasted forever? Has there ever been a state of anxiety that did not eventually shift or change? The intensity of your wakefulness right now, this very specific combination of thoughts and physical sensation is temporary, like every cloud that has ever crossed the sky. It has arisen due to a set of conditions, and as those conditions change, it too will change and dissolve. The sun will rise, as it always has. A new day will begin. This state is not a life sentence. It is a passing weather pattern. To remember this is to open a window in the locked room of your suffering. It lets in the fresh air of perspective and the light of hope. The contemplation of impermanence works by loosening the tight grip of identification. When we are in an unpleasant state, we tend to cling to it with our aversion. Our mind becomes sticky. We fuse with the feeling. We become the anxious one or the insomniac. But when we remember that this state is impermanent, we can hold it more lightly. We create a space between our awareness and the experience itself. We can observe the feeling of wakefulness without being completely consumed by it, because we know its nature is to change. It's like holding a piece of ice in your open palm versus clenching it in a tight fist. In the open palm, you can feel its coldness and watch it melt. In the clenched fist, you feel only the painful cold, and your very struggle makes it seem more solid and more menacing. Impermanence invites us to open our hand. The great meditation master Ajahn Chah had a powerful way of teaching this. He would often hold up a simple drinking glass for his students. He would say, "For me, this glass is already broken." He would go on to explain, "I know that its nature is to break. I enjoy it. I use it. I drink from it. And I take good care of it. I appreciate its beauty and its usefulness. But in my mind, it is already broken. So, one day, when the wind knocks it from the shelf, or my hand slips and it falls to the floor and shatters, I don't get upset. I don't suffer. I simply say, of course, because I understood its true, impermanent nature from the very beginning. We must learn to hold our state of wakefulness in the same way we hold Ajahn Chah's glass. When you are lying awake, you can look at the state of your mind and body and say to yourself, "For me, this wakefulness is already past." You don't have to like it. You simply recognize its nature. You know that, like the glass, it is conditional, fragile, and destined to change. And when it finally does give way to sleep, whether in 10 minutes or in a few hours, you can simply acknowledge. Of course, you are no longer surprised or shocked by change, because you have come to expect it. At first glance, the teaching of impermanence might sound pessimistic or sad. It means that happy moments also pass. Good health does not last forever. Life is fleeting. But this is a shallow understanding. The truth is that impermanence is the ultimate source of liberation and hope. Because pleasant moments are fleeting, we are inspired to cherish them more deeply, to be fully present for them instead of taking them for granted, and more crucially for our journey. Because unpleasant moments are fleeting, we have no reason to despair when we are in their grip. If your suffering were permanent, then you would have every reason to despair. But it is not, because everything changes. There is always the possibility of relief. There is always the possibility of peace. There is always the possibility of sleep. Change is the engine of hope. It frees us from the twin tyrannies that cause so much of our suffering: the tyranny of clinging to pleasure and the tyranny of resisting pain. We learn to flow with the river of life, rather than trying to dam it up or force it to go in a different direction. So, the wisdom of impermanence, of anicca, becomes our steadfast companion. In the dark, it is the quiet, constant voice of truth that whispers, "This will not last." It soothes the panic of the mind that believes it is trapped forever. It dissolves the solid wall of despair into a flowing, changing current. By embracing this fundamental law, we find a deep and unshakable peace. A peace that is not dependent on our circumstances being pleasant, but on our wise understanding of their transient nature. We have now explored the great internal pillars of this practice. We have learned to anchor ourselves in the present, to surrender the habit of striving, to accept what is, to observe our thoughts without engagement, and to see the impermanent nature of all experience. Our inner foundation is now strong. With this foundation in place, we can now turn our attention outward, just as a wise gardener tends to the soil. They also consider the design of the garden beds, the strength of the fences, and the quality of the light. We too must look to our external environment, for it is a powerful reflection and influencer of our internal world. We must learn how to make our physical space a true ally in our quest for rest. We have journeyed deep into the inner world, exploring the landscape of the mind and learning to navigate its storms with the tools of acceptance and wisdom. We have come to understand that our inner state is paramount, but our inner world does not exist in a vacuum. It is in a constant, dynamic relationship with our outer world. A chaotic, cluttered, and overstimulating environment will inevitably create echoes of chaos, clutter, and stimulation in the mind. To give our inner practice the greatest possible chance of success, we must create an external environment that supports and reflects our intention for peace. We must consciously create a sacred space for sleep. This journey begins by reclaiming the bedroom, transforming it from a mere room where we happen to sleep into a true sanctuary, dedicated to rest, renewal, and tranquility. Our brains are powerful association machines. They learn from repetition and context. If you consistently work on your laptop in bed, your brain learns to associate your bed with alertness, problem solving, and the stress of your job. If you regularly eat in your bedroom while watching thrilling or violent movies, your brain learns to associate that space with stimulation, digestion, and heightened emotions. If you have difficult, argumentative phone calls in your bedroom, it becomes a place associated with conflict and anxiety. We unknowingly train our nervous system to be on high alert, in the very place we need it to be most at peace. Reclaiming your bedroom means making a conscious choice to dedicate the space to a single purpose: rest. This is not about rigid rules or deprivation. It is about giving yourself a profound gift. This means, as much as possible, the bedroom is not your office, your cinema, or your dining room. Make a clear and compassionate rule with yourself. Laptops and work papers do not enter the sanctuary. The bed is for sleeping and intimacy, not for finishing one last report. Remove the television. A bedroom is a place for winding down, not for absorbing the frantic energy of the news or the artificial drama of a movie. Avoid eating meals in bed. Let the act of eating happen in its own dedicated space. By creating a single-purpose sanctuary, you create a powerful associative cue. When you cross the threshold into your bedroom, your brain receives an immediate and unambiguous signal. This is the place of letting go. This is the place of peace. The need to consciously wind down is lessened, because the environment itself is already doing half the work for you. Beyond its purpose, the physical characteristics of the space play a crucial role in communicating with our ancient biology. Our bodies are still wired with the software of our ancestors who slept in caves. For a cave to be a safe place to rest, it needed to be three things: dark, quiet, and cool. These three signals are deeply embedded in our DNA as prerequisites for sleep. First, darkness. Our body produces a hormone called melatonin, often called the hormone of darkness, which is essential for initiating sleep. This production is triggered by the absence of light. In our modern world, we are surrounded by artificial light, especially the blue spectrum light emitted by our phones, tablets, and computer screens. This light is a powerful signal to the brain that it is still daytime, and it actively suppresses the production of melatonin to honor your body's need for darkness. Consider blackout curtains to block street lights. Cover or remove any small electronic lights in the room. Most importantly, create a screen curfew for yourself. A rule to put away all screens at least an hour before you intend to sleep. This gives your brain the time it needs to receive the signal of darkness and begin producing the hormones of rest. Second, quiet. Even low-level noise can keep the nervous system in a state of subtle vigilance, preventing it from descending into the deepest stages of sleep. If you live in a noisy environment, simple earplugs can be an invaluable tool. For some, the complete absence of sound can itself be unsettling. In this case, a white noise machine or a simple fan can create a consistent, soothing sonic blanket that masks jarring, intermittent sounds, allowing the mind to relax its guard. Third, coolness. A slight drop in your core body temperature is a natural biological trigger for sleepiness. A room that is too warm can interfere with this process. Keeping your bedroom slightly cooler than the rest of your home encourages this natural temperature drop and invites the body toward rest. Aligning your room with these three principles: dark, quiet, and cool is not about being fussy. It is about respecting your own biology. It is about creating a modern cave where your ancient body can finally feel safe enough to surrender. There is a spirit of profound intention that we can bring to this space, much like the spirit one finds in a Zen monastery, in a monastery. Every action is a form of practice. The careful arrangement of shoes at the door signifies leaving the dust of the world behind. The mindful sweeping of the garden is a meditation on clarity. The precise folding of a robe is an expression of care and order. Nothing is haphazard. This is not about rigid perfectionism, but about imbuing a space and the actions within it with reverence and purpose. We can bring this same spirit into our bedroom. Making your bed each morning is not just a chore, it is the act of setting a daily intention for order and calm. It is a way of thanking the space for the rest it provided. Keeping the room uncluttered is not just about tidiness. It is a way of creating a visual environment that promotes a clear and uncluttered mind. When we treat our bedroom with this kind of intention, it ceases to be just a room. It becomes consecrated ground, a space that holds and nurtures our peace. Finally, we can enhance this sacred space with the power of ritual and scent. Rituals are the bridges that help us transition from one state of being to another. A simple, consistent, and calming pre-sleep routine is a powerful signal to the body and mind that the day world is ending and the night world is beginning. This is not another list of tasks to complete. It is a gentle process of unwinding. It might involve sipping a warm, non-caffeinated herbal tea, like chamomile or valerian. It might be reading a few pages of a paper, book something soothing or inspirational, not a gripping thriller. It could be 10 minutes of light, gentle stretching to release the physical tensions held in the shoulders, neck, and back. The power of the ritual lies in its consistency. It becomes a reliable, comforting sequence that tells your entire being, it is time. It is time to let go. Scent is another potent tool, as our sense of smell has a direct pathway to the brain's emotional centers. Gentle, natural aromas like lavender, sandalwood, or ylang-ylang can become powerful associative cues for relaxation. A few drops of essential oil in a diffuser, a light mist of a linen spray on your pillow, or a simple sachet can fill the space with a fragrance that your brain learns to equate with calm and safety. By consciously shaping our sleeping environment, we are doing more than just redecorating. We are engaging in a dialogue with our own nervous system. We are creating a space that honors our biological needs and supports our spiritual intentions. Our bedroom ceases to be a passive backdrop to our nightly struggles and becomes an active partner in our practice of finding peace. It is the cave, the sanctuary, the monastery temple, where we can retreat from the world and reconnect with ourselves. Having now prepared this quiet, calm, and sacred space, we are ready to truly inhabit it. Within the safety of these walls, we can turn our attention to the subtle world of the senses, to explore the often challenging landscape of nighttime sound, and to discover the profound, healing potential that lies within silence itself. We have now, with great care and intention, prepared our outer sanctuary. The room is dark, cool, and uncluttered. It has become a space dedicated wholly to the purpose of rest. As we settle into this carefully crafted peace, our awareness, no longer consumed by inner battles, can begin to open up to the subtle environment around us. And it is here that we encounter one of the most common and potent triggers for nighttime frustration: the world of sound, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, the hum of the refrigerator, the drip of a faucet, the tick of a clock. For so many of us, these small sounds become the focal point of our irritation, the final enemy standing between us and sleep. We lie in bed, clenching our jaw, sending waves of resentment toward the source of the sound, believing that if only we could achieve perfect silence, all our problems would be solved. But what if, like our striving for sleep, this quest for perfect silence is also a trap? What if we could learn to transform sound from a source of torment into a gateway for meditation? First, we must dismantle the myth of perfect silence. True, absolute silence is an incredibly rare phenomenon, almost impossible to find outside of a laboratory, even in a specially designed anechoic chamber. A person would eventually begin to hear the steady beat of their own heart, the rush of blood through their veins, the faint electrical hum of their own nervous system. The world is, by its very nature, alive with sound. In your room at night, there is a rich and complex soundscape: the whisper of the wind outside your window, the groan of the house as it settles, the faint roar of distant traffic, the chirp of a lone cricket, even the condition known as tinnitus, a persistent ringing in the ears, is a form of sound. Our suffering, therefore, does not arise from the sounds themselves. It arises from our relationship to them. It is born from our judgment that a sound is bad, wrong, or annoying. It comes from the story we tell ourselves: I will never be able to sleep with that noise. This judgment, this story, is the second arrow we fire at ourselves, turning a neutral sensory event into a source of profound agitation. The practice, then, is to consciously change this relationship. It is to move from a state of hostile resistance to one of open, curious, and receptive listening. Instead of tensing up against the sounds of the night, we can choose to intentionally soften and open our awareness to them. Imagine that your ears are two large satellite dishes, designed not to broadcast, but only to receive. Your only job is to allow whatever signals that arrive to be received, without preference and without judgment. Let go of the effort to block sounds out, and let go of the effort to strain to hear them. Simply let the soundscape of your room wash over you. Notice the sound that is most prominent. Instead of labeling it annoying, simply investigate its qualities. Is its pitch high or low? Is its volume loud or soft? Is it a steady, continuous sound, like the hum of a fan? Or is it intermittent, like the ticking of a clock? Notice how each sound arises in your awareness, exists for a moment, and then fades away, replaced by another, or by a moment of relative quiet. You are witnessing the impermanence of sound, moment by moment. By stripping the sound of its negative label and instead meeting it with this gentle curiosity, you rob it of its power to disturb you. The infuriating drip becomes simply a high-pitched, rhythmic, falling sound. The sound itself has not changed, but your entire experience of it is transformed. In this way, the field of sound can become a new and powerful anchor for your attention. just like the breath or the body. For some people, focusing on the breath can feel difficult or even anxiety-provoking. The soundscape offers a wonderful alternative. When you find your mind has wandered off into a familiar spiral of worry or planning, you can gently guide it back by asking the simple question, "What am I hearing right now?" This question immediately pulls you from the conceptual world of thought into the direct, sensory reality of the present moment. This can be an especially liberating practice for those who experience tinnitus. The constant ringing is often a source of immense distress, precisely because of the frantic and futile effort to escape it. Mindful listening invites a radical new approach. What if you were to turn toward the ringing instead of away from it? What if you were to make the ringing itself the object of your meditation, to listen to its pitch, its volume, its texture, without judgment, without resistance? For many, this practice of befriending the sound can dramatically reduce the suffering associated with it. The sound may persist, but the struggle ceases. There is a great figure in Buddhist tradition known as Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. In parts of Asia, this figure is known as Kwan Theam, a name that can be translated as the one who hears the cries of the world. The very essence of this being's compassionate power is the practice of deep listening. Avalokiteshvara listens to all the sounds of suffering throughout the universe, not with aversion or fear, but with an open and boundless heart. In order to respond with skillful help, we can practice being a small bodhisattva in our own bedroom. We can practice listening to the sounds of our own little world with this same quality of deep, non-judgmental, and compassionate attention. We can listen to the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the house, the beat of our own heart, and receive them all with a spacious and gentle awareness. By doing so, we transform what was once a field of irritation into a field for the cultivation of peace. As you become more comfortable with this practice of listening to sounds, you can explore an even more subtle dimension. You can begin to listen not just to the sounds, but to the silence that holds them. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is the background, the vast, empty canvas upon which all sounds are painted. Sounds are temporary events, but the silence is the eternal, underlying context. You can practice hearing this silence. Can you notice the tiny gap of quiet between the tick and the tock of a clock? Can you feel the silent, aware space in which the hum of the fan is happening after a car drives by and its sound fades? Can you listen to the quiet it leaves behind? This practice shifts your attention from the foreground of phenomena to the background of awareness itself. To rest in the awareness of this deep, live silence is profoundly calming. It is the sound of the mind no longer at war with its experience. It is the sound of peace. Through this profound practice of listening, we completely rewrite our relationship with the night. We move from being a frustrated victim of our sonic environment to being a curious and gentle explorer of it. We learn, with deep certainty, that our peace is not dependent on achieving an impossible external silence, but is found in cultivating an unshakable internal silence, the spacious awareness that can hold all the sounds of the world with grace and ease. This deep, embodied practice of listening to what is truly happening, both in the world around us and within our own bodies and minds, gives us the stability and clarity to look even more directly at the nature of our discontent. It prepares us to investigate the very essence of what the Buddha called dukkha, or suffering, as it manifests in our own intimate experience of the night. We have journeyed through our inner and outer worlds, learning to anchor ourselves in the present and to listen with a new and gentle clarity. This clarity allows us to see our struggle with sleep not as a random, personal failing, but as a direct and intimate encounter with the most fundamental truths of the human condition. The Buddha, in his first and most important teaching after his enlightenment, did not speak of gods or cosmology. He spoke like a great and compassionate physician. He diagnosed the human condition in a teaching known as the Four Noble Truths. To understand this teaching is to understand the very nature of our own suffering, and to see for ourselves the path that leads out of it. And our sleepless nights, ironically, provide the perfect laboratory for this profound investigation. The first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. This ancient word is often translated as suffering, but its meaning is far broader and more subtle. Dukkha is not just acute pain, like grief or physical agony. It is the pervasive, underlying sense of unsatisfactoriness that runs through our lives. It is the feeling that something is slightly off kilter, like a wheel on a cart that isn't perfectly round, making the journey bumpy and stressful. It is the friction between our desires and reality. It is the inherent stress of clinging to things that are constantly changing. Insomnia is a perfect, modern-day embodiment of dukkha. The actual physical sensation of being awake is not, in itself, excruciatingly painful. The dukkha arises from the intense unsatisfactoriness of the situation. The friction between our deep desire for the release of sleep and the persistent reality of wakefulness is immense. So, when you are lying awake, know this: you are not being punished. You are not broken. You are experiencing a direct, powerful, and universal lesson in the first noble truth. You are face to face with the fundamental human condition. The second noble truth addresses the cause of this dukkha. The physician has diagnosed the illness. Now he identifies its origin. The Buddha taught that the cause of our unsatisfactoriness is a deep-seated thirst or craving, known as tanha. This is not just a simple wanting. It is a compulsive, driving thirst that manifests in three primary ways. As you lie in bed, you can observe these three forces at work within you. First, there is the craving for pleasant experiences. This is our intense, desperate thirst for the state of sleep. We crave the feeling of our mind going quiet, the sensation of our body letting go, the blissful oblivion. This craving is the golden prize that causes the archer's hand to tremble. It is the fuel for our striving, the source of our tension. The more we crave sleep, the more we push it away. Second, there is the craving to be rid of unpleasant experiences. This is aversion, a form of negative craving. It is our hatred for the state of being awake. We despise the feeling of a busy mind. We detest the alertness in our body. We loathe the ticking of the clock. This aversion is the engine of our internal war. It is what fuels our resistance, our anger, and our frustration. It is the tightening in our jaw, the clenching in our fists. This craving to annihilate our present experience is a potent source of dukkha. And third, there is a deeper craving to become something we are not, or to hold on to a particular identity. We crave to be a good sleeper. We cling to the identity of a healthy, well-rested person. And we have a deep aversion to the identity of the insomniac. This clinging to and resisting of identities creates a profound layer of stress. All of this is fueled by a fundamental ignorance, or moha, a delusion where we mistake our thoughts for reality and do not see the impermanent, transient nature of our own states of mind. This brings us to a powerfully empowering reframing. Your bedroom at night, which can feel like a lonely prison cell, can be transformed into a personal laboratory for spiritual insight. You have a front row seat to the workings of your own mind. You are not just a victim of insomnia, you are a researcher studying the very nature of suffering. As you lie there, you can begin to observe with a scientific detachment. When a wave of desperate longing for sleep washes over you, you can note, this is craving. This is the thirst for a pleasant state. This is what the Buddha was talking about. When you feel a surge of anger at the sound of a passing car, you can note, this is aversion. This is the hatred of an unpleasant experience. How interesting. When the thought I'm a failure because I can't sleep arises, you can note, this is delusion. This is the mind clinging to a painful identity. This shift in perspective is monumental. You are no longer the one being tossed about in the storm. You are the meteorologist in the weather station, observing the storm, studying its patterns, and understanding its causes. The pain may still be there, but the layer of suffering that comes from feeling like a helpless victim begins to dissolve. Your experience, however difficult, becomes meaningful. The Buddha's own story after his enlightenment illustrates this perfectly. Having awakened to the true nature of reality, he did not use magical powers to eliminate sickness, old age, and death from the world. He did not wave a hand and make all suffering disappear. Instead, he became the great physician. He spent the rest of his life doing one thing, teaching the Four Noble Truths. He taught others how to diagnose their own illness of dukkha, how to see its cause in their own craving and aversion, how to understand that a cure of the cessation of suffering is possible, and how to apply the medicine of the Eightfold Path. He taught people how to become their own healers. Our practice in the middle of the night is exactly this. We are not trying to magically eliminate wakefulness. We are learning to be our own physician. We are diagnosing, in our own direct experience, how our thirst for sleep and our hatred of wakefulness are the true sources of our agony. This understanding, this clear seeing, is itself the first dose of medicine. It is the beginning of the end of our suffering. Thus, our experience of sleeplessness is transformed. It is no longer a meaningless curse or a sign of personal failure. It becomes our teacher. It may be a harsh and demanding teacher, but it is a profoundly wise one. It teaches us, more directly than any book or any lecture, the most fundamental truths about the human heart and the nature of the mind. It shows us the path to peace, not by giving us what we want, but by showing us how our wanting is the problem. This clear understanding of the cause of our suffering, this craving, this aversion, this web of stories we spin leads us to a natural and vital next step on the path. If we are to stop creating our own suffering, we must be willing to let go of the very things that fuel it. We must be willing to challenge our most deeply held beliefs and expectations, especially our beliefs about sleep itself. We must learn to approach the night not with a mind that is full of demands and preconceptions, but with a mind that is spacious, open, and willing to be empty. We must learn the art of emptying our cup. We have journeyed to the very heart of our struggle, and we have found that the engine of our suffering is the relentless thirst of the mind, the craving for what we don't have, and the aversion to what we do. This thirst is fueled by a complex web of beliefs. ideas, and opinions. And when it comes to sleep, our minds are saturated with them. We are experts, filled with knowledge gleaned from articles, doctors, and late-night internet searches. We know all the rules. We know all the things that can go wrong. We come to our beds each night, not with a quiet mind, but with a mind that is overflowing with frantic expertise. But what if this very expertise, this cup, so full of knowledge, is the source of the problem? What if the path to peace requires not learning one more fact, but unlearning all the rules we hold so tightly? There is a classic Zen story that illuminates this predicament perfectly. A learned and distinguished university professor, a man renowned for his intellect, traveled to visit a wise, old Zen master to inquire about the nature of Zen. The master welcomed him graciously and offered him a cup of tea. As the master prepared the tea, the professor began to speak. He spoke of his own philosophical ideas, his deep understanding of various spiritual traditions, and his theories about what Zen must ultimately be. He was, in effect, explaining Zen to the Zen master. The master listened quietly and began to pour the tea into the professor's cup. He filled the cup to the brim, and then he kept pouring. The hot tea overflowed, spilling onto the saucer, across the table, and onto the floor. The professor, aghast, leaped to his feet. "Stop," he shouted. "What are you doing? The cup is full. No more will go in." The Zen master stopped pouring, looked calmly at the professor, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" We are all that professor. We come to our beds each night with a cup that is filled to the brim and overflowing. It is filled with rigid rules, scientific data, and fear-based beliefs about sleep. The most prominent of these is the tyrannical rule of the 8-hour night. We have been told that we must get 8 hours of sleep to be healthy and functional. What begins as a helpful public health guideline transforms, in the anxious mind, into a cruel and rigid ruler against which we measure ourselves. Moment by agonizing moment, you lie in bed, and the mental calculator starts running. It is now midnight. If I fall asleep this instant, I can get 8 hours. Okay, an hour passes. It is now 1 o'clock. If I fall asleep now, I will only get 7 hours. This is not ideal. Another hour passes. It is now 2 o'clock. Only 6 hours. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. This mathematical torture is a powerful stimulant. It creates a constant state of performance anxiety and a recurring sense of failure, which are the perfect biological conditions for staying awake. The obsession with this one specific number is a primary source of our self-inflicted suffering. The first step in emptying our cup is to pour out this rigid rule and replace it with a wiser measure, the quality of our rest, not the quantity of our sleep. True restoration for the body and mind is not solely determined by the number of hours we spend in a state of unconsciousness. Consider 2 different nights. On the first night, you spend 8 hours in bed, but you are tossing and turning. Your body is tense, and your mind is a hornet's nest of anxious thoughts about your poor sleep quality. You wake up feeling exhausted and unrefreshed. On the second night, you only get 4 hours of actual sleep. However, the hours before and after that sleep were spent in a state of deep, peaceful rest. Your body was relaxed. Your mind was calm and accepting. even while awake. On which night did your system get more genuine restoration? The answer is clearly the second night. Peaceful, wakeful rest is incredibly valuable. In this state, your body is repairing itself. Your nervous system is in a calm, parasympathetic state. You are conserving energy. By shifting our goal from "I must get 8 hours of sleep" to "I will give my body the gift of 8 hours of rest," we remove the pressure of performance entirely. We can succeed at resting at any moment. And paradoxically, in that state of unconditional, pressure-free rest, sleep is far more likely to arrive as a welcome guest. We must also empty our cup of all the other smaller, related rules and beliefs. Beliefs like, a healthy person falls asleep within 15 minutes, or waking up in the middle of the night is a sign of a disorder, or if I don't get a perfect, uninterrupted night of sleep, I cannot function. These are not laws of the universe. They are simply stories, mental constructs that we have come to believe are true. The practice of emptying our cup is the practice of approaching each night with what is known in Zen as a beginner's mind. A beginner's mind is empty, open, and free of preconceptions. It is willing to see things as they are, not as it thinks they should be. We let go of our detailed map of how the night is supposed to unfold, and we simply meet the territory of our actual experience with the tools of mindfulness and acceptance that we have been cultivating. Perhaps the heaviest, most bitter dregs at the bottom of our cup is the story of our own identity. We say to ourselves, and perhaps to others, "I am a chronic insomniac," or "I am a bad sleeper." Notice the power of those two small words, "I am." When we use them, we are no longer talking about a temporary condition or a passing experience. We are making a statement about the very core of our being. We are taking a fluid situation and turning it into a solid, unchanging, and deeply personal identity. The sleeplessness is no longer something that is happening to us. It is who we are. This is the ultimate trap. To empty this final part of the cup requires a gentle but radical shift in our language and our self-concept. Instead of the heavy, identity-forming statement, "I am an insomniac," we can practice telling a more accurate and compassionate truth. "Sometimes, my body has difficulty sleeping," or, more immediately, "Tonight, I am experiencing wakefulness." This simple change in language creates a profound psychological space. It demotes the condition from a fixed, personal identity to an impersonal, transient event. It is the difference between saying "I am a rain cloud" and "I am the sky." And today there are rain clouds. You are not the condition. You are the vast, open awareness in which the condition is temporarily appearing. This is the practice of emptying your cup. It is an act of liberation, of letting go of the heavy burden of our own certainty. We pour out the rigid rules, the fear-based statistics, the limiting stories, and the painful identities. We arrive at our bed each night, not as a worried expert, but as a humble beginner, open to the mystery of the present moment. And when our cup is finally empty, we create a space into this clean, quiet, and receptive space. We can now choose to pour something new. We can fill it not with more rules or fears, but with a quality that is profoundly healing, deeply nourishing, and has been sorely missing from our struggle. We can begin to fill our cup with the gentle warmth of compassion for ourselves. We stand now with an empty cup. We have poured out the rigid rules, the fearful beliefs, and the heavy, self-defining stories that have plagued our nights. We have created a space of open, humble, beginner's mind, but a vacuum does not last for long. Into this space, a familiar voice often rushes to fill the void. It is the voice of the inner critic. It is the voice that has been whispering or shouting in the background of our entire struggle. It is the voice that tells us we are failing, that we are weak, that we are broken. After being struck by the first arrow of wakefulness and the second arrow of anxiety, we so often pick up a third arrow, the most intimate and painful of all, and fire it directly into our own heart. It is the arrow of self-blame, the antidote to this poison, the healing balm that we must now consciously choose to pour into our empty cup. Is the gentle, radical, and strengthening power of compassion. For many of us, the internal monologue during a sleepless night is one of relentless cruelty. You're doing it again. The critic sneers. You are so undisciplined. If you had just done things differently today, this wouldn't be happening. Look at you, weak and pathetic, while the rest of the world rests. This voice feels like a harsh drill sergeant, one we believe is necessary to whip us into shape. But this is a profound misunderstanding. This voice does not motivate. It demoralizes. It does not create discipline. It creates fear. Biologically, this voice of self-judgment floods our system with the stress hormones of shame and failure, activating our threat response and making the state of relaxation required for sleep a physiological impossibility. It is the very opposite of a medicine. It is a poison we willingly administer to ourselves, over and over again. The first step toward healing is to recognize this voice for what it is: not a helpful motivator, but the sound of our own suffering. The practice of cultivating compassion is the direct antidote to this poison. In the Buddhist tradition, there are two words for this quality: metta, which means loving kindness, the sincere wish for oneself and all beings to be happy and well, and karuna, which means compassion, the sincere wish for oneself and all beings to be free from suffering. The practice begins with a simple, gentle gesture. As you are lying in bed, you might place one or both of your hands over the center of your chest, over your heart. The physical warmth and gentle pressure of your own hand is a powerful, non-verbal signal of care to your body. Then, with your hand resting there, you can silently offer yourself a few phrases, not as affirmations you have to force yourself to believe, but as a sincere offering, a gentle wish. You can say, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful." Breathe in, and on the out-breath, repeat, "May I be peaceful." Then, you might offer the phrase, "May I be kind to myself in this difficult moment." And perhaps most importantly, "May I be free from this suffering." Let the words be soft. The intention behind them is what matters most. You are generating a feeling of warmth, of friendliness, of unconditional tenderness toward the one who is struggling, which is you. If this feels difficult or artificial at first, there is another gateway into this feeling. Imagine for a moment that a small child whom you love dearly comes into your room in the middle of the night, their eyes wide with fear. They cannot sleep, and they are frightened. What would you do? How would you speak to them? Would you criticize them? Would you tell them they are a failure for being awake? Of course not. You would open your arms. You would hold them close. You would speak in a soft, soothing, gentle voice, you would say, "Oh, my sweet one, it's okay. I am here with you. This is a difficult moment, but it will pass. You are safe. Just rest here with me." The practice of self-compassion is simply learning to turn this same voice, this same quality of gentle, unconditional love, inward, the part of you that is awake, anxious, and suffering is that frightened child. It doesn't need more judgment. It needs to be held. It needs to be soothed. It needs to know that it is safe and loved. Even in its struggle, there is a moving story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates the sacred importance of this quality of care. One day, the Buddha and his chief attendant, Ananda, were walking through the monastery grounds. They came to a hut where they could hear the sounds of pained moaning. Inside, they found a monk who was gravely ill with a terrible disease. He was lying alone in his own filth. Because his illness was unpleasant, and the other monks, out of aversion, had neglected him. Seeing this, the Buddha did not launch into a lecture. His response was one of immediate, practical compassion. He turned to Ananda and said, "Go and fetch some water." When Ananda returned, the Buddha, the fully enlightened one, knelt down and began to gently wash the sick monk's body with his own hands. As he cleaned the monk, Ananda cleaned the living quarters. When they were finished and the monk was resting comfortably, the Buddha gathered all the monks of the monastery together. He said to them, "You have no mother or father here to look after you. If you do not care for one another, who then will care for you? Know this, whoever tends to the sick and the suffering among you is tending to me." In this story lies a profound teaching for our inner life. Within each of us, there is a sick monk. It is the part of us that feels helpless, anxious, afraid, and abandoned. It is the part of ourselves that we often find unpleasant, the part we neglect or turn away from in aversion. Our practice of self-compassion is the practice of becoming the Buddha to our own inner suffering. It is the act of turning toward our own sick monk with unconditional care. We cease our criticism, and instead, we gently begin to wash away the accumulated filth of self-judgment. We offer ourselves the medicine of our own tenderness. Many of us fear that self-compassion is a form of weakness, of self-pity or excuse-making. We believe that we need the harsh inner critic to keep us in line, but all evidence shows the opposite is true. Self-criticism leads to a fear of failure, which breeds anxiety and procrastination. Compassion, on the other hand, builds resilience. When you know that you can meet your own struggles and failures with kindness rather than with scorn, you become more courageous. You are more willing to face difficulties, knowing that you have a safe place to land within your own heart. From a purely biological standpoint, compassion is a powerful medicine. It soothes the nervous system, reduces stress hormones, and creates the internal environment of safety that is the absolute prerequisite for rest. It is not a weakness. It is the ultimate source of our strength. So we learn to fill our own cup with this warmth. We learn to become our own best friend in the middle of the night. We become the gentle parent, the loving caregiver, the compassionate Buddha to our own suffering. This practice has a surprising and beautiful effect as we learn to hold our own struggle with this newfound kindness and space. The tight, self-obsessed focus on my problem begins to soften. The feeling of being an isolated victim starts to dissolve. We begin to see that our sleeplessness is not an island, but a small part of a vast and interconnected web of causes and conditions. Our inner compassion opens the door to a wider, more holistic wisdom. It helps us to see how our inner state is woven together with every other aspect of our lives. As we learn to fill our own cup with the warmth of self-compassion, something remarkable begins to happen. The hard, sharp edges of the self begin to soften. The feeling of being an isolated, struggling individual, a lone soldier fighting a private war, starts to dissolve. In holding our own suffering with kindness, we naturally begin to feel a greater sense of connection. This opens the door to one of the most profound and perhaps most healing insights in all of Buddhist thought. It is the understanding of interconnectedness, or as it is known in the ancient Pali language, Pratitya Samutpada. This complex name describes a simple, yet world-altering truth. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in dependence upon other things. This is, because that is, this ceases, because that ceases. There is no single, independent cause for any event. Instead, every moment is the result of a vast, intricate, and interwoven web of countless causes and conditions, and your state of wakefulness, in this very moment, is no exception. In the throes of a sleepless night, it is so easy to feel that the problem is localized and personal. We think, my brain is broken, or my chemistry is off, or I am failing. We see it as a contained battle between me and my inability to sleep. But the wisdom of interconnectedness invites us to zoom out, to see the much larger picture. Your state of mind and body right now is not a singular event, but a confluence, a meeting point of 1,000 different threads that stretch throughout your day, your week, and your life. Let us gently trace some of these threads together. The alertness you feel right now is connected to the cup of coffee you drank at 3 in the afternoon, whose effects are still subtly vibrating through your nervous system. It is connected to the argument you had with a loved one over dinner, the unresolved emotional energy of which is still circulating in your body. It is connected to the lack of bright sunlight you got this morning, which prevented your body from setting a strong circadian rhythm for the day. It is connected to the stressful news program you watched just before getting into bed, which activated your body's threat response system. It is connected to the heavy meal you ate late in the evening, which is still demanding your body's energy for digestion. It is connected to the fact that you sat at a desk all day, leaving your body with a restless, unexpressed physical energy. Do you begin to see you, as a separate and isolated self, are not failing at sleeping? It is simply that the vast and complex web of conditions, your food, your light exposure, your emotional state, your physical activity, your information dietas not, in this particular moment, converged in a way that produces the phenomenon we call sleep. This understanding is a profound relief. It lifts the crushing burden of personal blame and replaces it with a gentle, scientific curiosity. The question shifts from the self-flagellating, "What is wrong with me?" to the wise and compassionate, "What conditions are present? And how might I skillfully influence them tomorrow?" You are no longer a failed person. You are a gardener observing the complex ecology of your own well-being. In ancient Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, there is a beautiful and powerful metaphor for this vision of reality. It is called Indra's net, Imagina vast, infinite net that stretches out in all directions, filling the entire universe. At every single point where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, perfectly clear, multifaceted jewel. The net is structured in such a way that if you look closely at any one jewel, you will see reflected in its polished surfaces every other jewel in the entire net. Not just that, but each reflection itself contains the reflection of all the other jewels. And so on, into infinity. Nothing is separate. Everything contains everything else. Your life is one of those jewels. Your state of being right now is one of those jewels. And in it, if you look closely enough, is reflected everything else. Your work, your relationships, the food you eat, the air you breathe, the thoughts you think, and your sleep, or lack thereof, is just one single facet of this magnificent, interconnected jewel. To try and fix sleep in isolation is like trying to polish one single facet of the jewel, without understanding that its luster depends on the light and reflection of all the others. This understanding moves us from a place of helplessness to a place of skillful action. If our state of rest is the result of a web of conditions, then the way to influence that state is not to attack it directly on the bed at night. The way is to gently and wisely tend to the threads of the web during the day. We stop trying to force the harvest at midnight, and we start tending the garden at dawn. The work of finding peace at night begins with the first choices you make in the morning. Perhaps it is choosing to go for a 10-minute walk in the morning sun to set your body clock. Perhaps it is choosing a lighter, healthier lunch. Perhaps it is the choice to put your phone away during a conversation and offer your full attention, creating less mental residue. Perhaps it is the choice to turn off the news and listen to calming music in the evening. Each of these small, mindful actions is an act of tending to the web. You are skillfully creating the causes and conditions that will, in their own time, naturally give rise to the result of peaceful rest. This holistic view also cultivates a deep patience, because the web is so vast and complex, with so many interconnected threads. We understand that there is no magic button, no quick fix. We cannot expect one healthy meal or one mindful walk to instantly solve a long-standing pattern. Instead, we adopt the patient, steady attitude of the gardener. We know that by tending to the conditions day after day, we are gradually, gently, but surely shifting the entire ecosystem of our well-being toward a state of greater balance and harmony. We trust the process. We trust that if we create the right conditions, the desired result will eventually, naturally, appear. The wisdom of interconnectedness frees us from the lonely prison of self-blame and places us within a vast, dynamic, and living web of life. It shows us that we are not a solid, independent entity fighting our own battles, but rather a process, a flowing confluence of all that has come before and all that is present now. Seeing ourselves in this way, not as a noun but as a verb, not as a separate self but as an ever-changing nexus of relationships, naturally leads to an even deeper and more profound question. If everything is interconnected, if everything arises from conditions, then what is this I that sits at the center of the web? What is this awareness that is experiencing all of these conditions? This flow, this life, this inquiry takes us beyond the simple binary of sleeping and waking into a direct exploration of the very nature of consciousness itself. Our journey has taken us to a place of profound interconnectedness. We have begun to see ourselves not as isolated islands of suffering, but as integral parts of a vast and intricate web of life, where every thought, action, and condition is woven together. This realization softens the hard edges of the personal self, the I that feels so burdened and afflicted. As this solid sense of self begins to dissolve, a new and even deeper question naturally arises. If I am not just this body, and not just these thoughts, and not just this story, then what am I? What is this silent, knowing presence within which all of this experience, the sleeplessness, the thoughts, the sounds, the feelings is taking place? This question invites us to explore the very nature of consciousness itself, and to discover a form of rest that lies beyond the simple binary of sleeping and waking. Think about your life. Your body has changed dramatically since you were a child. Your thoughts change from moment to moment. Your emotions are in constant flux. The world around you is never the same. Yet, there has been one constant factor through all of this change. There has been a witnessing presence, an awareness that has been the screen upon which the entire movie of your life has been projected. This awareness was present when you were 5 years old, feeling the joy of play. It was present when you were a teenager, feeling the pain of a broken heart, and it is present right now, aware of these words and the feeling of your body resting in bed. This awareness itself does not age. It does not change. It is the silent, constant witness of all that changes. Now, let us apply this inquiry to the experience of the night. You say, I was awake all night. And then the next day, you might say, last night, I slept so deeply. Or I had a strange dream. Consider the I in these statements. Who is the one that knows these different states? For you to know that you were asleep, some subtle form of awareness must have been present to register the experience, even if that experience was an absence of thought. For you to remember a dream, an awareness must have been present to witness the dream as it unfolded. And for you to know that you are awake right now, that same awareness is present, witnessing the thoughts and sensations of wakefulness. Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep are different states, different kinds of weather, but the awareness in which they occur is the same sky. Herein lies a profound practice you can undertake, especially when you find yourself awake at night. You have become accustomed to placing your attention on the objects that appear in your awareness, a thought, an ache in your body, a sound from the street. Now, we are going to attempt a gentle but radical shift. We are going to try to turn our attention away from the objects and toward the awareness itself. Instead of watching the thoughts, can you sense the silent, empty space in which the thoughts are appearing? Instead of focusing on the anxiety, can you feel the unwavering presence that is aware of the anxiety? As you rest here, ask yourself, what is the nature of this awareness? Is the awareness itself anxious, or is it simply aware of the feeling of anxiety passing through it? Is the awareness itself tired, or is it aware of tiredness in the body? Is the awareness itself agitated, or is it aware of a busy mind? As you investigate this honestly, you will discover that the awareness itself has no qualities other than knowing. It is not sad or happy, anxious or calm. It is like a perfect, clear mirror. It simply reflects whatever passes before it, without being stained or changed by the reflection. The mirror is not made sad by a sad face, nor is it made happy by a smiling one. Your true nature, this background awareness, is inherently peaceful, still, and silent. The noise is in the thoughts. The peace is in the awareness that knows the thoughts. A beautiful metaphor for this is the ocean and its waves. Your mind, in its entirety, is like the great ocean. The changing states of your experience are the waves on its surface. When you are anxious and sleepless, the surface of the ocean is turbulent, with huge, crashing waves. When you are in a peaceful, creative flow, the surface is marked by gentle, rhythmic swells. When you are in deep, dreamless sleep, the surface appears dark, calm, and still. We spend almost our entire lives living on the surface, identifying completely with the state of the waves. When the waves are big, we say, "I am anxious." When the waves are calm, we say, "I am peaceful." We have forgotten that our true nature is not the fleeting, temporary wave. Our true nature is the entire ocean. The wave is just a temporary expression of the ocean. Its substance is still water. Whether the wave is a tiny ripple or a towering tsunami, the deep, vast, silent body of the ocean beneath remains undisturbed, peaceful, and unchanged. The ultimate goal of this path of meditation is not simply to calm the waves, though that is often a wonderful side effect. The ultimate goal is to realize that you are the ocean. It is to shift your identity from the ephemeral, changing wave on the surface to the vast, eternal, peaceful depth of the water itself. When you can rest as the ocean of awareness, the state of the waves becomes much less significant. You can be aware of a turbulent, anxious mind, but you are resting in the deep, silent peace of the ocean beneath. You can be aware of a body that is awake, but you are resting in an awareness that is already, and always, at peace. This is a form of rest that is deeper than sleep. Sleep rests the body and the conscious mind, but abiding in pure awareness rests the very soul. It is a homecoming to your true nature. This is, of course, a subtle and profound shift. Our logical, analytical mind, the part of us that lives on the surface and is obsessed with the waves, finds this very difficult to grasp. It wants to measure the ocean, analyze its currents, and chart its depths. It cannot comprehend the simple instruction to just be the ocean. The thinking mind wants to solve the problem of sleeplessness. To figure it out, it does not understand that the deepest peace is found not in solving, but in dissolving into something far greater than its own small concerns. Recognizing this limitation of the logical mind, the masters of Zen devised a special and powerful tool. It is a tool designed to bypass the analytical mind, to short-circuit its endless loops of logic, and to give one a direct, non-conceptual taste of this deeper reality. This tool is the practice of the koan. We have arrived at a very subtle and pivotal point in our journey. We have seen that our deepest peace lies in the vast ocean of awareness, not in the turbulent waves of thought on the surface. We have also seen that the part of our mind that lives on the surface, logical, analytical, problem-solving mind, is the very part that keeps us from sinking into this deep rest. It is a wonderful tool for navigating our careers, fixing a car, or planning a trip. But at night, when we need to let go, this problem solver becomes a tyrant. It endlessly analyzes our sleeplessness, calculates lost hours, and strategizes new ways to fix the problem, all of which only creates more tension and alertness. So how do we gently ask this brilliant, but obsessive, being part of our mind to stand down? For this specific challenge, the ancient masters of Zen developed a unique and powerful form of medicine. It is a practice designed not to satisfy the logical mind, but to exhaust it, not to answer its questions, but to show it that its questions are fundamentally unanswerable. This is the practice of the koan. A koan is not a riddle to be solved. It is not a clever puzzle with a hidden, intellectual answer. A koan is a paradoxical anecdote, a non-logical question, or a startling statement that is presented by a Zen master to a student. Its purpose is to short-circuit the student's process of thinking, judging, and analyzing the rational mind. Upon encountering a koan, tries to attack it with its usual tools. It tries to figure it out, to find a clever solution. But a koan is designed to be impenetrable to logic. The student may wrestle with it for days, months, or even years, until finally, the intellectual mind, utterly exhausted and defeated by the task, simply gives up. It surrenders, and in that moment of surrender, in that space of not knowing, a deeper, more direct and intuitive understanding can flash into being. The koan is like a piece of grit in an oyster. Its purpose is to irritate the analytical mind until it produces a pearl of wisdom. You have, in fact, been wrestling with a powerful koan all along, without even knowing it. The central, agonizing question that your mind asks in the middle of the night, how do I force myself to sleep, is a perfect, self-contained koan. Consider it. Your logical mind hears this question and immediately starts generating strategies. Maybe I should try a different breathing technique. Maybe I should think relaxing thoughts. Maybe if I tense and relax my muscles, maybe if I get angry at myself, I'll exhaust myself into sleep. But as we have seen, every single one of these efforts, every act of forcing or trying, is the very thing that creates alertness and pushes sleep away. The question itself is a paradox. The more you try to solve it logically, the further you get from the solution. The honest and direct investigation of this question leads the mind to only one possible conclusion. I cannot force myself to sleep. Any effort I make is counterproductive. When the mind truly, deeply sees this, it hits a wall. It is checkmated. And in this checkmate, it might, just for a moment, stop trying. That moment of stopping is the gateway to peace, beyond your own personal koan. You can work with a classic one as you lie in your bed. Instead of allowing your mind to drift into its usual loops of worry and planning, you can gently introduce a koan as your object of meditation. Take, for example, the famous koan, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Hold this question gently in your awareness. Your logical mind will immediately jump in with answers. It's impossible. There is no sound. It's a trick question. Simply acknowledge these logical thoughts and let them go. The goal is not to answer the question. The goal is simply to hold the question itself. When a worry about work arises, let it go and return to the question. What is the sound of one hand? When a plan for tomorrow's breakfast appears, let it go and return to the question. The koan acts as a strange and unchewable bone for the restless dog of your mind. The mind tries to gnaw on it from one angle, then another, but it can find no purchase. It is a practice that wears out the intellect. Another profound koan is, what was your original face? Before your parents were born? Again, the logical mind reels. That's impossible. I didn't exist. It makes no sense. The practice is to let go of the need for it to make sense. The question is a pointer, pointing away from your conditioned identity, your name, your history, and toward the unborn, unnamed, sky-like awareness that we have already discussed. By staying with the question, you are turning your attention away from the known and toward the great mystery of your own being. The mind, which loves certainty and facts, finds this space of pure mystery deeply unsettling, and eventually, it may just fall silent in awe as the intellect wrestles with the koan and finds itself repeatedly defeated. A new state of mind begins to emerge. It is what some Zen masters call the don't know mind. This is not the mind of ignorance. It is a mind that has become humble, a mind that has let go of its arrogant insistence on having all the answers. It is a mind that is open, spacious, and present, because it has stopped striving to figure everything out. This don't know mind is a profoundly restful state. It is free from the tension of seeking and the frustration of not finding, and you will notice that this state of open, spacious, non-striving, not knowing, is incredibly close to the state of surrender required for sleep to naturally arise. You have stopped trying to solve the night and have instead allowed yourself to rest in its mystery. There is a famous story of a monk who asked the great Chinese master Zhao Zhou, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" This was a philosophical trap, as the established doctrine of the time stated that all sentient beings possess the potential for enlightenment. A simple yes would be the expected answer, but Zhao Zhou replied with a single, sharp word, mu, in Chinese. Mu means no or nothingness. This was not a philosophical answer. It was a verbal sledgehammer. It was designed to shatter the monk's dualistic mind, which was trapped in the framework of yes or no, have or have not. Zhao Zhou was not giving information. He was providing a tool to cut through the net of conceptual thought. For centuries, monks have used this very koan, mo, not by thinking about it, but by becoming one with it, letting it absorb all their mental energy until the conceptual mind collapses. The koan, then, is a radical practice. It is a direct assault on the part of ourselves that we are most proud of, our intellect. It is a path of letting go of the mind that thinks it knows, but whether we use the gentle anchor of the breath, the solid ground of the body, the expansive sky of awareness, or the sharp sword of the koan, we must remember one crucial thing. None of these are instant cures or magic pills. They are tools in a toolbox. They are skills to be cultivated. They are all different fingers pointing to the same moon of inner peace. The path to this peace is not a single event, not a one-time fix. It is a process. It is a gradual path of cultivation, requiring patience, gentleness, and consistent practice. We have traveled a great distance together on this inner journey. We have explored the frantic energy of the racing mind, and we have found the quiet anchors of the breath and the body. We have navigated the great paradox of non-striving. We have learned the art of letting go, of accepting what is, and of watching our thoughts as passing clouds. We have uncovered the profound truths of impermanence, interconnectedness, and the nature of consciousness itself. We have even dared to wield the strange and sharp tool of the koan. It can feel like a vast and complex landscape of philosophies and techniques. And as you lie in bed, you might wonder, where do I even begin? What am I supposed to do now? It is at this point that we must introduce the most vital and perhaps most compassionate teaching of all. This is a gradual path. There is no magic bullet. There is no final destination to arrive at. There is only the path of practice itself, walked with patience, kindness, and persistence. First, we must release ourselves from the tyranny of perfection. There will be good nights, and there will be difficult nights. There will be nights when you feel a deep sense of peace and acceptance, and you drift easily into rest. And there will be nights when, despite your best intentions, your mind feels like a chaotic storm, and you feel lost all over again. This is not a sign of failure. It is simply the nature of life, the natural ebbing and flowing of conditions. The goal of this practice is not to eliminate all difficult nights forever. The goal is to fundamentally change your relationship with them when they do arise. Success is not a perfect track record of 8 hours of sleep. Success is the moment in the middle of a difficult night when you remember to be kind to yourself. Success is the moment you notice you are resisting and you choose to soften. Success is the moment you are lost in a storm of thoughts and you remember to return, just once, to the feeling of your breath. To help you navigate these varying conditions, it is helpful to think of all the techniques we have discussed not as a rigid, linear program, but as a personal toolkit. You are a skilled craftsperson, and on any given night, you can choose the right tool for the job at hand. When your mind is just generally busy and scattered, you might reach for your most fundamental tools, the anchor of the breath, or a slow, gentle body scan. These are your grounding implements, your hammer and chisel. When you feel a wave of intense frustration and the feeling of being trapped arises, you might reach for a different set of tools, the wisdom of impermanence, reminding yourself this, too, shall pass, or the practice of acceptance, consciously declaring a truce in your inner war. When you find yourself hooked by a particularly compelling and catastrophic story, you reach for the tool of non-engagement. You label the thought worrying, planning, and you watch it like a leaf on a stream. When the voice of your inner critic is loud and cruel, you must put down all other tools and pick up the most healing one. You place a hand on your heart and offer yourself the soft bandage of self-compassion. And on those nights when the logical mind is stuck in a particularly tight, obsessive loop, you might choose to employ the special, pattern-breaking tool of the koan. You are the practitioner, and you can learn to trust your own wisdom to know which tool is needed in which moment, to become skillful with these tools. However, you must be familiar with them. A musician does not wait until the night of a grand concert to practice their scales. They practice every single day, so that when they are on stage, the music flows through them effortlessly. In the same way, we must tend to our minds daily, not just when we are in a crisis. This is why a short, consistent, daily meditation practice is so invaluable. Just 10 or 15 minutes a day. Sit quietly and simply practice resting your attention on your breath. Practice watching your thoughts come and go. Practice being kind to yourself when your mind wanders. This daily session is not about achieving a special state. It is about building the underlying muscles of mindfulness, concentration, and compassion. You are going to the inner gym every day, so that when you need your strength in the middle of the night, it is there for you. We must also remember that this path is not a straight line upwards. It is more like a spiral. You will find yourself revisiting the same challenges, the same anxieties, the same patterns of thought again and again. But if you are practicing, you will notice that each time you spiral back around to an old difficulty, you meet it from a slightly higher place. You meet it with a little more wisdom, a little more patience, a little more skill than you had the last time. Do not be discouraged by this repetition. This is the nature of deep learning. There is a beautiful image for this process, the way that dripping water wears away a great stone. A stone is not broken by a single, violent blow. It is transformed by the gentle, patient, and relentless persistence of single drops of water falling on the same spot, day after day, year after year. Each mindful breath you take is a drop of water. Each moment of choosing acceptance over resistance is a drop of water. Each time you are kind to yourself instead of critical, it is another drop of water. These moments may seem small and insignificant on their own, but accumulated over time, they have the power to wear away the hard stone of our most deeply ingrained habits. Therefore, learn to celebrate the true victories. The victory is not just I slept through the night. The true victory is I was awake for 2 hours, but I was resting peacefully. The victory is my mind was racing, but I remembered to come back to my breath 10 times. The victory is I felt a surge of panic, and I met it with compassion instead of more panic. These are the moments of real transformation. This is the evidence that the practice is taking root in your heart. This is the gradual, steady, and beautiful path of awakening. As we walk this path, week after week, month after month, our entire perspective begins to shift. We began this journey with a problem we wanted to fix, a painful affliction called insomnia that we wanted to get rid of. But as we practice, as we go deeper into ourselves, and as we cultivate these qualities of awareness and kindness, we may begin to see the experience in a new light. We may start to suspect that this difficult and unwelcome companion, this darkness that forced us to embark on this profound inner journey in the first place, was not just a curse. We may begin to wonder if, hidden within this struggle, there was an unexpected and perhaps even necessary gift. We began this journey together as adversaries. Our sleeplessness was the enemy, a cruel thief that stole our energy, our joy, and our peace. Our goal was to fight it, to overcome it, to find the right technique or secret knowledge that would finally vanquish it from our lives. We have since traveled through many landscapes of the mind, gathering tools and insights along the way. But the final stage of this journey asks of us the most radical transformation of all. It asks us to look again at this enemy, this curse, this affliction, and to consider the possibility that it was never an enemy at all. It asks us to entertain the idea that hidden within the heart of this darkness, there has always been an unexpected, profound, and life-altering gift. Throughout our busy days, we are masters of distraction. We use our work, our relationships, our screens, and our endless lists of tasks to keep ourselves in constant motion. This motion is not just physical, it is psychological. We are often running from ourselves. We are running from the quiet anxieties that hum beneath the surface, from the unresolved grief sitting in a corner of our heart, from the deep questions about our life's purpose that we don't have time to face. We are experts at keeping the ghosts of our own inner world at bay, at least until the sun goes down. But then night comes, and on a sleepless night, All our usual escape routes are closed. There is no one to talk to, no urgent email to answer, no show to distract us. There is only the darkness, the silence, and the stark, unavoidable reality of our own mind. Insomnia, in its relentless fashion, forces us to stop running. It invites us, or rather, it compels us, to an intimate and unsought spiritual retreat. It sits us down in the quiet dark and says, "There is nowhere else to go. Let us now meet the parts of yourself you have been avoiding." These long, quiet, and often lonely hours become our meditation hall. This is where the teachings cease to be abstract concepts and become lived, felt realities. It is one thing to read about the monkey mind in a book. It is another thing entirely to watch it leap and chatter, firsthand and without distraction, for 3 hours straight. It is one thing to hear a lecture on impermanence. It is another to lie in bed and witness, with your own awareness, thousands of thoughts arising, shimmering for a moment, and vanishing into nothingness. It is here, in this private laboratory, that we truly learn. We learn the visceral feeling of craving as our body aches for sleep. We learn the fiery heat of aversion as we curse the sound of the birds heralding the dawn. We learn, with absolute certainty, how we shoot ourselves with the second, third, and fourth arrows of anxiety and self-judgment. Our sleeplessness becomes our most difficult, and therefore, our most effective teacher. It holds up a perfect, unflattering mirror to our own habits of mind, and it does not allow us to look away. There is a perfect symbol for this entire transformative process, one that is cherished throughout the spiritual traditions of the East. It is the lotus flower. The lotus is a symbol of purity, enlightenment, and spiritual beauty. It rises above the water, its petals pristine and untouched by the environment around it. But the most profound and miraculous thing about the lotus is not its beauty, but where it comes from. The lotus does not grow in a pristine mountain meadow or in a carefully manicured garden. The lotus grows only out of the thick, dark, smelly, murky mud at the bottom of a pond. The roots of this exquisite flower must push down into the darkness and draw their sustenance from the very muck and decay that we would normally find repulsive. The mud is not an obstacle to the lotus. The mud is the essential and necessary condition for the lotus to bloom. Our suffering is the mud, the anxiety, the frustration, the despair, the loneliness of our sleepless nights. This is the rich, dark, and difficult mud of our experience. For a long time, we see only the mud. We hate the mud. We want to escape it. We curse it for its very existence. But as we practice, as we bring awareness and compassion to our experience, something new begins to happen. We start to notice a small, green shoot pushing its way up through the darkness. It is the shoot of wisdom. It is the shoot of self-compassion. It is the shoot of a newfound inner peace. This is the lotus of our awakening, and it is growing directly out of the mud we so despised. We come to realize the profound truth: no mud, no lotus. Without the very difficulty that we fought so hard against, the beautiful flower of our own inner peace would never have had the chance to grow. And so we arrive at the final, most radical turn in our journey. We can begin to feel a quiet sense of gratitude for our insomnia. This may sound absurd. Grateful for this thief of the night. Grateful for this source of misery. Yes, because we can see, with the clarity of hindsight, that this struggle was the catalyst for our deepest learning. Without the intense pressure of this difficulty, we might have spent our entire lives seeking peace where it can never be found. In external conditions, we would have sought it in a better job, in a perfect relationship, in a flawless night's sleep. We would have been forever rearranging the furniture on the deck of a ship, hoping to find a stable spot. Our insomnia, our great teacher, has taught us a more profound truth. It has taught us, through direct and undeniable experience, that true peace is not contingent on external circumstances. It is an inside job. It is a quality of heart and mind that can be cultivated and accessed right here, right now. Whether we are sleeping soundly or lying wide awake, it has taught us how to be the sky, not the weather. This knowledge, this embodied wisdom, is the greatest gift we could ever receive. It is a portable and unshakable peace, a freedom that no one and nothing can ever take from you. The enemy has revealed itself to be our greatest ally. The poison has been transmuted into medicine. The darkness has revealed a brilliant inner light. This is the final, paradoxical gift of our long nights, to see the suffering not as a mistake, but as the very soil of our liberation. And now, having traveled from the depths of our struggle to the heights of this new and transformative understanding, let us pause and gather the threads of this entire journey, distilling its essence into a final, empowering message of peace that you can carry with you into the night and into the rest of your life. And so, our long journey through the night comes to a gentle close. We began in a state of struggle, wrestling in the dark with the relentless energy of a mind that would not rest. We felt like victims, trapped and isolated in our private battles. From that place of difficulty, we set out together, and we have traveled far. We have learned to drop the profound anchors of the breath and the body, finding stability in the storm. We have confronted the great paradox of surrender, discovering that our effort was the obstacle and that true peace is found in letting go. We have learned to see the architecture of our own suffering in the story of the two arrows, and have found freedom in the wisdom of impermanence. We have emptied our cup of rigid beliefs and have begun to fill it with the healing warmth of self-compassion. And finally, we have looked our greatest adversary in the eye and seen, reflected there, the face of our most profound teacher, realizing that the mud of our struggle is the very soil from which the lotus of wisdom must grow. If there is one truth to carry with you from our time together, from this entire journey, let it be this: the ultimate goal is not to conquer sleep, but to cultivate peace. The frantic search for a perfect, uninterrupted 8 hours is the golden prize that makes the archer tremble. Let it go. Your aim is no longer to fall asleep, but to fall into a state of unconditional rest, a state of gentle, open acceptance of whatever the present moment holds. Embrace a new definition of a good night. A good night is one in which you were kind to yourself. A good night is one where you met your anxiety with the breath, instead of with more anxiety. A good night is one where you rested peacefully, even if you were not always asleep. When you make peace your goal, you can succeed in any given moment. Sleep, when it comes, arrives not as a prize you have won through struggle, but as a gentle guest, drawn to the quiet, welcoming stillness of your own heart. It becomes a byproduct of your peace, not the source of it. You have everything you need. This is the final, empowering truth. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. The tools we have discussed are not external things you must acquire. They are simply ways of uncovering the innate capacities you already possess. The breath that anchors you is your own. The body that grounds you is your own. The boundless, sky-like awareness that can hold all thoughts, all feelings, and all states with perfect, non-judgmental peace is your own true nature. The capacity for kindness and compassion that can soothe your own frightened heart is your own birthright. You are the sky, and all of this the sleep, the wakefulness, the thoughts, the feelings is just passing weather. Rest in that vast and peaceful nature. Trust in it. It is who you truly are. So tonight, and every night, may you meet your experience with this newfound gentleness. May you remember your own innate strength and wisdom, and may you rest deeply in a peace that is always and already your own.